Good evening, good evening, good evening. Thank you all for tuning in. Um, before we get the show on the road, I do want to share some somber news with you guys, and I'd like to thank John Stokes for um, how do you say finding this out, man? Finding this out. But as you guys know, we've been asking about Renee Cruz, and um, the worst fears have been confirmed. So Renee Cruz has passed. So wherever you are, man, God bless you, man. God bless you, and I hope you enjoy the show. What I would like to say, if anybody wants to leave a message of condolence for Renee Cruz, the link is in the description box. So please go over and just show some love, man.
Yeah,
So,
much appreciated. Yeah.
and I'll say hello to everyone.
Good evening. How's everyone? And
So,
yeah, it's sad news. It really is. But yeah, all thoughts and prayers to the family. Because Renee was pretty much everywhere in the UFO community, and she was an awesome person. So yeah, thoughts and prayers. So today's show, it's an interesting one, isn't it?
and today's show is also dedicated to Renee Cruz. So wherever you are, I hope you're getting the feed, man. I hope you're enjoying it. I know you can't comment, but bless, man,
Yeah.
bless. So
what's
Huh?
been happening? Well, I was going to say what's been happening for the past couple of weeks is since we had the interview with Gary that's coming on the show, is that we really wanted to get the key eyewitness, which was Caz, and through a lot of communication back and forth, we managed to actually get the key witness here with us live on the show. So without further ado, can we introduce Caz and Gary to the show?
There you go. Here's the legend, that's Caz. Well, funny enough, my button's stuck on Gary, so I don't think he'll be joining us. I'm just playing, man.
Hi, guys. Thank you for having us up.
Let's go on to the show. Yeah, this is one hell of an incident that occurred in 2016, and I really want to get into the nitty and gritty of this whole aspect because I think this is one of the most intriguing UFO sightings I've heard in modern day history. I have to admit, being a historian into the UFO, especially like landings and encounters, I think this is pretty much there as like one of the top sightings. So without further ado, could you really give us a whole breakdown on your experience and what happened on
Kaz, before you start, can I just say something real quick? Guys in the chat, can you please save your questions till the end? Because Kaz and Gary may answer your questions during their account. So thank you very much. There you go.
And I just want to add that I will answer anything and everything if I know the answer.
Okay. Am I going to win the lottery? No, I'll play it.
I wish I knew.
I'll get out if you do.
Let me start by first saying that I didn't have an interest in UFOs. I never dismissed the idea that they were real. I had watched Stephen Greer do his press conference because it went global. But it never compelled me to go and join a UFO group or to have any interest, really. It didn't have any part of my life. And it started for me on Tuesday, the 23rd of February. And the incident happened in the early hours of Friday, the 26th. And I noticed this small grey twin prop plane just flying very low, military aircraft, all grey in colour, just flying very low and very slow over my village. And on the Tuesday, I didn't pay it any mind. I was going out shopping. When I came back, that was it for me. It was the Wednesday morning when David, one of my neighbours, we're not friends necessarily, we're neighbours, came out of his house and he was cursing, and I won't say what he said, but he was swearing profusely that this small grey prop plane had kept him awake all night. And it was then that we started to notice the behaviour of this plane. And it was flying in circles, just very slow and very low, so much so that you could see the pilot. And I just remember thinking, if it goes any slower, it's going to fall out of the sky. And a short while later, another plane, almost identical to the first, would come and take its place, and then the first plane would leave. Well, David had sent an email to the Ministry of Defence and did not get an answer. He also sent an email to Wales Online on mainstream media here. They too didn't answer, but we have the email. David's computer was consequently hacked afterwards, and certain photographs, audio messages, and emails were taken from his computer. Anyway, all Wednesday night, I had a very sleepless night. When someone has pointed a sound out to you, you kind of sit and anticipate when it's going to come back. And every 15 minutes, that prop plane was flying over my house. And in a village where you can hear a pin drop at night, it's extremely loud. So going into Thursday morning, we decided, because nobody had got back to us, that if it was still there Thursday night, we go out and watch with them, because it was quite clear that they were watching for something. They didn't leave the airspace unwatched, not for a single minute. One plane would come before the first one would leave, and then one would come back, and then that one would leave, you know. Anyway, we lit the fire pit at the back of my garden. We were not camping, as some people have said. We lit the fire pit, and we were watching this plane just flying in circles, and then it started to fly in figure 8 formations. And I said to David, this has got to about 2 a.m. now, in the early hours of Friday the 26th. Bearing in mind, people had to get up for work that morning. It got about 2 a.m. and I said to David, look, I'm freezing cold, just a little bit bored of watching this plane fly around. David was quite excited still, thinking that perhaps we were going to see some real-life dogfight with Russian planes, because it had only been the week before that our RAF had turned away 2 Russian Tu-160 bombers from our airspace. So I wonder now, did the Russians know it was coming? Anyway, I got to the back door of my house. I literally had my hand on the door handle to go in, and I heard what sounded like a missile, really loud. And I've run back to the end of my garden to see this huge plane fly over the top of me. I didn't know what it was. I could just about identify a Cessna back then. And this plane's banked around to the left-hand side. We had it just ebbed over the full moon. As it banked around to the left-hand side, you could see this mushroom-shaped object on its back. And David said, that's an E3 Sentry plane, an AWACS plane. That didn't mean anything to me either. So I watched this plane. It started to circle, not small circles like the smaller reconnaissance planes, but large circles. It took about 5 minutes, we estimated, for it to go around once. And Pentyrch is in an elevated position on the side of a mountain. So you can see in every direction but north, because that is where the actual mountain is, for miles. 7 times this plane went around. David said perhaps it's taxiing for the airport, because Cardiff International Airport is a short throwaway, if you like. But you wouldn't expect to see an E3 Sentry plane there either. On the 7th time it went around, when red lights became visible high above the fields behind my house. And I'd shouted for Donna, one of our other neighbours that had been watching with us that night. She'd gone in to make us all hot drinks. I shouted a second time, still no answer. So I said to David, let's go to the farmland. There's a 5-bar gate that overlooks the farmland to get an unobstructed view as to what was going on. And one red light turned into 3. It didn't fit. It was followed by, and on its near side edge, the lights were brighter than all the other lights around it as it emerged out of the darkness. It didn't come down from outer space. It didn't decloak. It came through this fabric, through this veil around us, into our dimension. This was not from here, and the military were there waiting for it. It was a 3-sided pyramid. On its near side edge, the lights that were closest to me, they were always brighter than the rest, like it was some kind of steering mechanism for this craft. And it came in, and as it did, it was turning very slowly anti-clockwise. And as it did, it came down in a pendulum motion. And when it was in the upright position, it fired this really bright green object out of the top. I didn't know what shape it was then. It was really bright, brighter than the moonlight. And it moved across. It was fired at the top so fast. It was like it was fired out of a cannon. And it stopped above the trees behind my house. and it rocked there gently backwards and forwards. Didn't move anywhere, it's just there the whole time. Meanwhile, the pyramid is still turning anti-clockwise away from me. So I've stood on the 5-bar gate to get a better look through the bare trees. And I said to David, it's landing, thinking it was coming down, when in reality, the ground was coming up to meet it, because that was the foot of the Garth Mountain. And when it neared the ground, because it was slightly tipped, this right-hand corner ejected, I've described like a hand of lightning, not thin lightning, thick, like fire-colored fingers, reached out and touched the ground, and the whole thing lit up really brightly. And the lights nearest the ground turned from, because all the lights were red, from tail light red to this really bright white orange, and that went part way up the sides and part way along the bottom, and you could see around those brightest lights that it was a solid craft, textured like a rock face, like a natural rock face. And I heard the military planes coming. They were 2 C-17s, I know now, thanks to Gary Jones and the investigation that he did into the military timeline. And they were flying wingtip to wingtip, really low. Let me take a drink a second. And I looked up just to see them go over the top of me. And when I looked back, I couldn't see the pyramid anymore. Now, that's not to say it wasn't there. I just couldn't see it. David said he saw 15 or 20, he described as orbs, come out of the top of the pyramid. And this is to give you a scale of how big this thing was, that whilst I was looking at the bottom, I couldn't see the top in my peripheral vision from 200 meters away. Excuse me. 2 other planes came from my left-hand side, I now know to be Hercules aircraft, big military planes with 2 engines on each wing. They too have turned behind and come back in behind the 2 C-17s. So now you've got 2 C-17s in close and 2 C-130s out wide. And that green object that had been there the whole time moved across and in front of those planes and fired, I described like 3 really bright strobes as if to get their attention. The E3 Sentry was above all of this as it was going on. And then it seemed to get excited. I described like Tigger off Winnie the Pooh, that it skipped and bobbed rather than flying in a straight line. And the 4 aircraft went after it. I remember watching it. And it bathed all of the aircraft in green light. You could see the outline of all their engines and the fuselages, all 4 aircraft, with the green light in front as it flew towards Llantrisant. When the green light was out of sight and the planes were out of sight, the E3 was still above us. We were approached by these 2 barrel-shaped objects. They were completely smooth, as if they were made of glass. I don't know, I didn't touch them, but that's what it looked like. And they were just capped on the top and on the bottom, with just black caps. And one moved away across to my left-hand side and stopped above the hedge about 20 feet away. And not even 20 feet in the air. I'm still stood on the gate. And I stared at it just for a few seconds because I wanted the details. I wanted to see. And all the insides were moving, like white noise on a TV screen, but it was mixing in on itself. And then I looked to see where the other one was, and that hadn't stopped. And by this time, it was right over the top of me. And the only thing I could think to do was to wave, because with all of the military activity going on, I didn't want us to appear to be hostile. And that has to be the universal signal for, hello, I don't mean you any harm. And I felt it scan me. It was the only thing I couldn't be tested for when I took my polygraphs, because it was a feeling. But when I heard Jake Barber recently describe how the craft made him feel, I cried. I literally cried because I felt vindicated. And it changed colour from red to green. And I could see even clearer the insides moving. And I heard a man's voice. Tell the world what you witnessed here. And the only words that came out of my mouth was, I will. And the red barrel that had remained sentry the whole time moved away to my left-hand side and low across the fields. And the now green barrel moved away to my right-hand side and low across the rooftops. David and I walked down to what we call the second field because he said he saw 15 or 20 of these things. So we wanted to see if there were any more. But this was a mountain in the middle of the night, and the ground was uneven and slippery. And in the shadow of the hedgerows, even with a full moon, you couldn't see where you were walking or what you were walking on. By the time we got there, there was nothing to see. So we walked back to the gateway where we watched all of this, and we heard the Apaches coming. There were 3 of them, one above 2. The E3 followed us when we moved. The E3 moved with us. And I want to try and explain that a little bit, that it maintained this oval flight pattern the whole time. And when we moved, that oval flight pattern came with us. And when we moved back, it actually followed me all the way back to my house. The Apaches were moving low across the fields. You could see all the grass and the hedgerows and everything being pushed flat by the force of their rotors. You could see their red, slow pulsing lights going out in front of them, and they were on an interception course where that green object had gone. We ran around the front of the houses thinking we could see more up the valley, but by the time we got there, they were already out of sight. So we came back to my house. David and I were complete opposites. He sat there in silence, hugging his hot chocolate, you know, trying to make sense of everything. And I had to tell someone, anyone that would know what to do, because I didn't believe in UFOs. I had no idea who to turn to, who to talk to about this. Anyway, David went home. I went to bed, not that I could sleep. And then I heard the enormous explosion from 5 miles away. And I knew then that they'd shot it down. But I wanted to prove it. I wanted to see. So the next morning, or I should say the same morning, but later, I woke up to David, excuse me. David was hammering on my front door with a cover story from Wales Online that this had just been a military training exercise. And I couldn't help myself. I didn't know you weren't supposed to talk about UFOs, so I made a comment. You know, I can categorically state that was no exercise. What I saw last night will stay with me for the rest of my life, and what they were chasing were not planes. I'd take a lie detector anywhere for anyone. But what I witnessed will stay with me forever, and it has. And of course, I had the debunkers because the military were in at ground level, at community level from the off. One called themselves the Smoking Man. One called themselves Agent Fox Mulder, would you believe? Because they do like to ridicule and take the mick a little bit.
That was on Wales Online.
That was on Wales Online, yeah. We do have their comments.
Yeah, I remember seeing that.
But they did go very quiet very quickly when I started to explain a bit more about what happened and that they may have chased and shot down the green object, but they left all the others here, didn't they? I don't think they wanted me to say anymore, and consequently my comments were removed from Wales Online, but not before other people had started to make comments. Now, Stephen, one of my other friends, had come over and he'd seen how frantic I suppose I was, and David was here, and we decided with Donna to go over to the field, what we call the near landing field, with this pyramid had almost touched down. We expected to see burn marks on the ground or something. And everything in that area was dead. All of the grass was dead. It had like sucked all of the chlorophyll out. And the other strange thing is that it was in this one field, not in the surrounding fields. We walked around the field completely. And I remember standing on the edge and watching the snow fall in front of me, but not on me like a child, you know. But the snow wasn't normal snow. It had resistance to it. you could hold it between your finger and your thumb and squeeze it, and it would leave a perfectly round circle of this snow on your thumb, and then it dissolved. It didn't melt. It totally dissolved. Anyway, when we'd seen that, we came back to my house, and there were further comments on Wells Online about the explosion, that the first explosion was an air explosion, and the second one sounded like something had hit the ground. So my immediate starting point at the other end was Llantrisant Common, because of all the comments, because I wanted to find the impact crater. So Stephen drove me out there, and all of the metal that had been on the common for years had been neatly stacked up along the roadside. There'd clearly been a meticulous metal search conducted in what the military calls silent hours in a residential area. And there was yellow tape tied to bushes and trees in some kind of grid formation when they had done the search. And I saw two people walking their dogs. And I asked them, bearing in mind this is the morning after the night before, had they witnessed anything or heard anything? And they told me that the second explosion came from Smilog Woods. Well, I didn't know where Smilog Woods was. I felt very small when they pointed to this 800-acre wooded hill that rises behind the hospital. And so we immediately went to Smilog Woods. And because I knew the trajectory of the green object, we knew roughly where to start looking. And we were skirting around the outside of the woodland to start with, before we started to see the evidence of the debris trail. Nothing grows on the forest floor. This is Forestry Commission. No light penetrates that far. And there were huge branches that had been broken off the canopies of these trees, laying left and right in a straight line as far as the eye could see. So we'd hacked our way through the brambles around the outside of the woodland and started to follow the debris trail. I kind of got halfway through, and I said to Stephen, I need a drink. You know, I'm not the fittest person in the world, but it's exhausting. You're not keeping to a trail. You're actually trying to get through a mountain in the woodland. So I said, let's go back and tell the others what we found, which is exactly what we did. And we hatched a plan to go up the very next morning, the morning of the 27th, with cameras to follow the debris trail through to its end. And that's what we did. And there had clearly been people there cleaning up. Some of the branches that we'd witnessed on the 26th had been moved and pulled into piles, but the majority of the debris trail was still there. There were 60-foot trees snapped in half, 20 feet in the air, just like twigs, just snapped. And there were others that were distended.
Sorry to interrupt, but with those trees now, Gary mentioned, am I correct in saying there were burn marks as well?
In the crash site area, yes.
But he said, I'm trying to remember what you said. Did you say they were burnt weird, strangely? It was strange burn marks. Could you describe it for us?
The burn marks were white. They were not black. And there was a really strong, pungent smell in the air.
What could you describe this pungent smell as? Hello?
Are you talking to me?
I was talking to Caz.
Sorry, I thought you were asking.
Sorry, Gary.
Oh, she got you.
Yeah, she's froze. Did you remember this pungent smell?
No, I didn't see the trees until about 20 months after it happened. So by the time I got there, the burn marks, yeah, they were white, and they're still there now. You can see them. If anyone wants me to show them one day, I'll gladly take you. As far as you can see in some of our presentations, the videos, you can see, yeah, they're white and they're like pinkish as well. They're not black, you know, they're not like flamed or, you know, some sort of extreme heat that's touched them. It's some sort of, like I say, like a microwave energy maybe that's affected it. And what's interesting is in the grouping of the 6 trees where this has happened, you can see it's just in this one area. There are other trees further back in the forest or the woods area, and they don't have those markings on them. not at all.
Have they cut the trees down since? Are they dead? Are they still growing back?
No, the trees are standing, but at the top where those burns have happened, the leaves around them, the bramble or the bushes on them, I should say, they haven't grown back. They're dead. They're totally dead.
Wow. Is it still there today? Yeah.
Yes, as far as I know.
Wow. Is it easy to get access to this area? Is it on private land?
It's not too far. You can go to there's one main car park in the area. Take a walk up the hill, take a left, and then as you come up, you take a right, and you'll see it up on the far right of the hill.
Oh, fantastic. Caz, you're back.
No
blame
surprise
Elon
there.
for that one. They're trying to silence us already, mate.
It doesn't surprise me. Something always happens, and that's not a conspiracy either. That's a fact. I was talking about the burn marks on the trees that were white. My hair had turned completely white overnight.
Yeah.
And that is visible in the crash site video. I mean, I am kind of salt and pepper now, but this is nearly a decade ago, you know.
Caz, may I ask, how long did it take you for your hair to turn white? Was it practically overnight?
Literally overnight.
Wow.
I mean, cleaning my teeth the next morning and then looking up and seeing it in the mirror was like, but I quite liked it.
Who's this?
Yeah, I did. I quite, you know, it's a bit of a strange thing, but I did quite like it. It was a little bit shocking, but I was more excited about going to see the crash site and following the debris trail through.
Caz, I wanted to know about the smell. How could you describe this pungent smell?
Like fireworks.
Gunpowder.
Yes, but more sulfur.
Was there like a metallic-y smell in the air? Like a metal smell?
Yes.
Could that have been like the aftermath of military firing on something? I don't want to put words in your mouth.
I can't answer that. It was very sulfur-like. I think you hear me talking in the video saying it smells a bit like fireworks.
Okay. I just want to say to you guys in the chat box that the presentation that she's talking about, there is a link in the description box to this presentation. So if you guys want to have a look at it, feel free.
Yeah,
do it after the show, not during.
There are 2 videos that I made for TikTok actually that covers possibly 80% of the evidence because I couldn't get it all into 2 hours. There's been a tremendous investigation conducted by Gari Jones and myself. But I think we've proven beyond any reasonable doubt that this was real. It includes photographs. We do have photographs of some of the objects. I did put a bit of charge into my phone, if anybody. I'll just zoom in on these a little bit. I don't know if you can see these. These are 2 of the objects that came out of the pyramid that night. There are other photographs. Wow. We do have the metadata to prove that it's real. So when people say if you haven't got photographs, we do have photographs. Anyway, where did I get to? The debris.
Let me say one thing quick.
Sure.
Those photographs that we've got, they come from the Colmiston witness, don't they?
They do.
Now, there is something interesting about this. Maybe people don't know, or maybe they heard, but haven't quite got much detail on. Those photographs, they show the barrel orbs. But what you don't see is that there's a distinct black triangular object in the middle of this photograph because he could see it with his eyes. He was trying to take a picture of it. But unfortunately, because how dark it was and how black this large craft was, you can't really make it out. I mean, I've been able to... Yeah, that's
talking.
The object in the center shows a distinct pattern like Caz and David described very early on. Now, it's a shame we can't get the originals. We can't get the actual photographs from them because of various reasons that we've discussed. A certain UFO group has them that they won't give them to us. I'm not going to go into any more than that, but we've got sort of copies, but they're not the best. You need the originals to highlight them and sort of try to bring out the detail. But there is clearly a distinctive large object below or above, the barrel-shaped orbs that they're witnessing. and it just shows there is photographs of this thing, but unfortunately, we just can't get a hold of them. So if the Colwyston witness is listening, please, we'll keep you in confidence, but can we please have those photographs if you still have them?
Yeah.
Yes.
I get that, because it's always easy to work off the original.
Yes, you
Less
need the original.
less degraded on the.
There's compression and data loss that gets happened when you take them off things.
So I deal with that.
Are terrible for compressing things, so it takes away a lot of the quality. Anyway, going into the investigation, because that was it for me. Once I'd found the crash site, we filmed it, and the strange snow was also present at the crash site, although the weather conditions were not conducive with snow. And the other interesting fact is that the moment that pyramid emerged, the temperature dropped by a full 5 degrees. The moment it emerged.
So you could feel the chill in the air.
Oh yeah, I'd never been so cold. I described it like touching a piece of dead meat in the fridge. I was that cold, dead cold. In fact, when I came home, I didn't even take my coat off. I was still sat in my coat, drinking my hot chocolate. It was the biggest thing that shocked me was I'd expected other people within the UFO communities across the globe to have seen something that I'd seen. And to find out at that time that nobody had was a shock, because everybody talked about flying saucers and little grey men. Nobody spoke about these barrel-shaped objects that were the size of an SUV, the size of a small car. And these things were conscious. One of the witness testimonies that we have said that one of these green objects was trying to hide in the fields, and the helicopters were sweeping the fields backwards and forwards looking for it. And once they were almost upon it, it's popped up and it's moved towards Llantrisant. They were trying to hide, and yet we shot them down anyway.
Welcome to the human race, guys.
Yeah, well, there was no hand of friendship extended, no attempt to communicate. We'd set an ambush for this thing. There were 20 military helicopter gunships out far out there where I couldn't see them. And I said to Gary jokingly, as they were waiting for me to drop my hanky to start this multi-billion-pound operation, because I could pinpoint the exact time when this thing emerged. That's when everything started moving in. And we do have other witnesses. The excuses given for taking the trees down, we've absolutely discredited them. They said that.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, they said it was Larch disease or Phytophthora ramorum, and that is such a contagious disease, and it's so dangerous. We don't have a cure for it, so they have very strict biosecurity in how to deal with this stuff. It has to be taken away by a licensed contractor, and they have to wash all of their equipment and wear coveralls on their feet and bodies so as not to spread the pathogen off site, because it's a very real danger of destroying our ancient forests. In fact, I think it's infected over 150 different varieties of trees and plants so far, and there's very few that are immune to it. So we did some research into this Larch disease, and rather than ask the Welsh government for this plant health notice that they said they had, that's like asking the Bank of England for a £10 note. They make them. I found their management strategy meetings that list every plant health notice issued in Wales for the last 10 years, and there had never been a plant health notice issued on Smilog Woods for Larch disease. But more than this, they're supposed to do a sanitized felling. Losing my voice, I am. Only what they did at Smilog Woods was not a sanitized felling. There was a place called Lickey Hills in Birmingham.
I know that.
They really did have Larch disease. And they put up a notice to say, we would ask visitors to help us in our efforts to stop this disease from spreading by observing any closures, cleaning your shoes, wheels, and dog's paws to stop this pathogen being carried off site. But there was nothing for Smilog Woods at all. And the area that they felled wasn't even outlined for felling. So why did they take them down?
Cover story, isn't it? It's always the same tricks with these people. It's I was just saying to Gary is I'd love to visit this place. Take some of the wood home to probably keep it to have it analysed at some point in the near future, most probably.
Well,
but, in terms of evidence, I think a lot of people are talking about it. In terms of how many people saw this witness, because they witnessed the explosion in the air, and I think that's what caught people off guard. Also, the helicopters were flying around. So, in terms of evidence with neighbours, what can you talk about to bring a bit of light to this situation?
I can read statements from people that have given statements in the village, and I understand why they wish to remain anonymous.
Sure.
Because of their professions. We have Jacob Coleman that has come forward. He's a witness to the Apaches in a standoff with the green object in Clantrescent. And he said that the object seemed quite agitated, that it was jittering backwards and forwards. And the back of it were like electronic sheets in the wind, which is a very descriptive way of visualizing what he could see. He's in the chat, is he?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's comment on the screen now.
Oh, wow. Hi, Jake. Thank you for joining.
Thank you, Jake.
Jacob Coleman, who's in the chat, is a witness that has come forward publicly. We've had members of staff at the hospital, witnesses in the village. It's very difficult to get people to come forward publicly.
It's understandable. Yeah.
But we do have their statements, and they're kind enough to have trusted us, not only with their identity, that we have kept confident, and I will always keep their confidence. And it's been almost a decade now. So I think Gary and I have proven that we would never give out a witness identity if they didn't wish that to happen. Richard Woodward is another one that saw the pyramid. We have witnesses in North Wales, but Gary and I are yet to get up there to get them on camera. They are prepared to come forward. And they saw the pyramid at 4:40 in the morning.
So that would have been after you?
Yes. And I did ask him what he was doing up at that time of the morning. And he said that they'd been rushed into hospital with their 6-month-old baby at the time. And they'd just been given the clearance to come home. And they were driving back and they saw this thing arching up into space. I do have a statement from him, but he wants to go on camera. He wants to go public. Shortly after the events here, we had some very strange men and women come and camp in the fields. And they'd given different stories as to who they were. And I only found out about them because of my local Pentyrch hub. And they told one group that they were a fracking survey team, which didn't go down very well in the village. And then they said that they were Vodafone doing field research. And that kind of tweaked my curiosity. Why were they changing their story? So Stephen had come over to my house and we'd taken my little dog out for a walk. And as we did so, and we got towards the gate, we saw 2 soldiers walking towards us. They were wearing digital camouflage, which I believe is American. They were carrying black assault rifles that did not have yellow caps in the end of the barrels. And the clips were black as well. So they were implied they were carrying live rounds. So they told me that they were doing a military exercise in the fields if I saw anything funny going on. Okay, and you need guns for that, do you? Anyway, we walked around into the field where they were camped, and they didn't use military tents. They were civilian tents. There were 2 rows of civilian tents. The photographs that I took covertly don't really give the scale of this, because you could have driven a truck up the inside of this row of tents and turned it and come back. It was quite wide. And they had an equipment tent, then a tent where the commanding officer sat, and another tent that was just a canvas tent with a toggle on the front, but I couldn't see what was in it. And we started initially walking around the outside of the field, and I said to Stephen, sod this, I want to get closer. So we've cut across the field, and as we did so, we were charged back by a huge, I now know to be some kind of pit bull type dog. And I said to Stephen, I'll pick my dog up because I didn't want her to get bitten. And it circled us. And I shouted to the two men that I could see in one of the tents, the commanding officer's tent, "You're no country boys, are you?" And I had an answer, what? And I said, "This is lambing season. Put your dog on a lead, or the farmer's got a shotgun and he's not afraid to use it." So that was my in, if you like. And I walked up the middle of their tents, taking photographs. And when I got there, there was a gentleman, he was about 60 years old, wearing gold-rimmed half-moon glasses. I had a DA type hairstyle, and he was operating a laptop-type device, not a laptop. It was bigger than a laptop, in a silver case. And he's used two hands to close it. He didn't want me to see what they were doing.
It sounds like a satellite connector.
Yes. I asked them who they were, and they didn't answer me. They answered me with a question: who was I? And I said, I'm a local resident. Who were they? I asked the second time, and they told me they were Vodafone. Well, in 10 minutes, I've been given two different stories. They're either Vodafone or they're doing a military exercise. When I went back to my house, Donna came out to see, what was going on. Did I get any photographs? So I showed the photographs that I had. She said that's not enough. So she went out again and took photographs of them. They had two more of those laptop type machines. One in the field where this pyramid had emerged, they were wearing white forensic suits, doing a fingertip search of that field. And they were operating one of those, I don't know what they are. And then they had another one on the Jeep at the end of the trail with a small satellite dish, only about this big, next to it. We believe they were triangulating a satellite into this area.
I believe that too.
Perhaps initially they were trying to block the frequency to prevent these things coming in. But now I think they were actually looking for something underground. They were heard saying, hurry up, find it. They were looking for something specific. There's a British guy that's invented a satellite that can look underground.
Yeah.
And I think that's what they were doing, but we will never know for sure. We did find out, however, that they were military. And I also found out that it's their duty to tell me who they are on private land. There's a wonderful document, the Training Over Private Land Act, which means that not only do they have to have permission, which they didn't have to be in Smilog Woods, where they assaulted, illegally detained, kidnapped two witnesses that saw the object on the ground. We have those two. And they were driven miles away from Smilog Woods and told not to return. No permission was granted from the Welsh government to be in there. And the military would have had to have had permission to have conducted an exercise there because it's private land. They broke every rule in the book, including the ministry's own avoidance policy, which is so serious it involves royal households. Next to a hospital, that's a no-no. Next to a civil airport, definitely not. Next to the Royal Mint, absolutely not. And over a residential area of more than 10,000 people in what they call silent hours would never have been allowed. And that's a complete breach of the avoidance policy by the Ministry of Defence. So sorry,
Caz, did they give any specific details on what they were doing in the exercise? For instance, the loud bang that occurred. Did they?
Yes. they said that they let off a simulated munition. But simulated munitions don't have any kinetic energy. None.
And it's
yet
important.
It shook the hospital. It shook patients awake in their beds. It shook people's homes and shook people awake in their beds. And it registered on the Richter scale.
That's what I was
40
going to say.
miles away in Monmouthshire. And it set the car alarms off in neighbouring villages.
Bloody hell.
So not just Clantrasant, in neighbouring villages, the car alarms were going off.
But the fact that it was picked up on the size, what is it, seismologies, that was a reading 40 miles away.
Yes. And Gary asked about that reading and what it was. And Gary, can you fill them in on that? Because I'm sure they said it was man-made or something.
Yeah, this was just something I thought I'd try. I wanted to ask about seismic data because I've had a number of other big UFO cases where grounds have been shaking and loud explosions have caused things to shake. So I thought, okay, then let's just go to the British Geological Survey, ask them in a freedom of information. I asked for the whole week. I didn't want to give it away that I was looking for something specific. And when I looked at the Friday, I could see that there was this little signal out there on its own about 4:15, 4:20 a.m. And when I asked the British Geological Survey, I said, can you please explain to me what this is? Excuse me. He said it's some sort of transient signal. And when you look that up, it said it has to be man-made. Now, given that there are quarries there that engage in explosions and there are industrial sites there, but guess what? They can't do anything until, in the late morning and throughout the afternoon. So we've got this signal that's happening around about 4:20 a.m. And I've got people online talking about explosions around this time. The people working in the Royal Glamorgan Hospital also reporting explosions or loud shakings. And this particular station that picked it up, it was 40 miles away, about northeast in Monmouthshire. And like I said, there was no other human activity that night except the military, what they were doing. And as Caz has already stated, they've already said to us, you were using simulated ordnance, right, to give off any idea that an explosion happened. So how does a simulated ordnance create a seismic signal? You use live ammunition. You shot something down, and it fits the timeline of everything else that we had from the witnesses up in the woods that night. They saw the military surrounding that object that got shot down. They said it looked like a Coke bottle, those Coca-Cola glass bottles with the glass bit on top. You chop that off. That's what it looked like. And it was all covered in bramble bushes, and they were wearing white hazmat suits. And again, I've worked with Caz on this. We tried to put the whole timeline together to find out what was going on, where and when. And all I can say is this is just another piece of evidence that fits what we've been able to prove.
And they lie so much. And I'm not saying that it's an accident that they lie. They lie blatantly. When we asked them regarding the men and women that were in the fields here, who they were, the Ministry of Defence blatantly and categorically stated that they had no information in the scope of our request, that they were not military. And we asked them again, because we asked multiple times, but we changed the question very slightly. Why use the fields of Pentyrch when Bridge is just up the road in his MOD land? And eventually, I think there were 3 separate freedom of informations that went in regarding the people that were there. And we got a section 26, not in the public interest. Well, only the military can hide behind section 26, but I wanted them to say it. And we did get them to say it. One of the questions that they skirted over was, why did they lie about their identity if this was just an exercise? And in the end, we sent in another one. We put it in capitals this time, just to emphasize the point. Why did they lie about their identity if this was just a military exercise? When approached by local residents, they impressed upon them that they were civilians, even though some were dressed in military attire. No plan or permission had been granted for the campsite in those fields, but they were civilian tents and vehicles and not military. Again, I asked this, why did they lie about their identity if this was just a military exercise? And they answered and they said, a new search for the information has now been completed within the Ministry of Defence, And I can confirm that some of the information in the scope of your request is held. However, all of the information falls entirely within the
26.
exemptions provided for Section 26.
Let's say that again. Section 26.
Section 26, which is allegedly a qualified exemption.
But you guys were walking around taking pictures of these people.
Yes.
So
No, I asked Gary to check with Cardiff City Council if there'd been a change of use in the planning department for such a campsite, because they would have needed one. This is farmland, and there wasn't any planning permission for a survey or for a campsite in those fields. The only people who could have done it and got away with it were the military. But under their Training Over Private Land Act, which is by the Defence Infrastructure Organisation for the Ministry of Defence, the people in charge, because I love the military, they have rules and regulations and they don't break them for anyone. I found Section 26B, which is their Training Over Private Land Act identification. All members of the services must disclose their identity and that of their unit if asked to do so by landowners and officials of national parks or forestry commission. It may not always be possible for landowners and officials to be readily recognised, but any persons questioning service personnel on private land must be assumed to have a valid reason for doing so. Therefore, the utmost courtesy must be extended to them. Parties of service personnel or individuals are not to avoid any person attempting to question them, but they did, and they lied.
Yeah, it's very evident that is happening. I mean, because they would have let at least the public know, the residents know, they'd be taken on this exercise at these stupid times in the morning. Was it 2 o'clock in the morning this started to happen?
It actually, the noise started at around 2:30. That's when everything started moving in, when the pyramid emerged. We estimate it started at around 2:30, 2:25, something like that. Okay. But I don't wear a watch, so my phone wouldn't even switch on.
I mean, I would like to talk about the craft itself. I mean, do you think that the military was waiting for something?
Yes.
Excuse me for 2 seconds.
That's right, Hayden. So you're saying the incident that you saw a couple of days beforehand, the Friday morning. Do you think that the military was obviously circling around trying to analyze where this potential? I mean, would you say it's a sentient craft? Would you say it's something military?
Whatever it was interdimensional, not from here. The Beechcraft Shadow R1 aircraft is an above top secret aircraft, and it was taken out of service in 2012 and brought back into service in 2014, having had some major, serious top secret refit. Its radar systems can see in 3D through trees, etc. We can find out more information regarding the AWACS planes than we can about this small reconnaissance and surveillance aircraft. In fact, both of the aircraft, one from the Army and the Beechcraft, are both reconnaissance and surveillance aircraft. They were watching for something. And Gary will tell you that they went down to Exmoor and then across to Plymouth and then came up to Pentyrch before they settled on Pentyrch on the 23rd. They were following the ley lines.
Interesting.
That's not a coincidence. Every major UFO sighting in the UK has happened on ley lines or where ley lines converge. That's not a coincidence. And then they stayed here and watched for it. I mean, they must have known it was coming imminently, but they didn't know when. But certainly they were watching for it. Yes.
Definitely, for sure. Yeah.
100%.
I mean, the voice that you heard telepathically that came into your head, did it have an accent? I'm really trying to picture what sort of voice it is. I mean, it's going to be very hard for you to describe because it was more or less in your head and internally. So did it have an accent? I was just trying to picture what this voice sounded like.
No, it was like AI.
Ah, interesting. Robotic sort of voice.
Sounded like a middle-aged man, but AI. I can't describe it.
Sure, I know it's a tricky one. Yeah, because a lot of people that had the same experience as you, Caz, they can't really picture or go into detail the voice itself. It's hard to describe, which is understandable. It's just
It was the way
something.
it made me feel that was different. And as I say, it was the only thing I couldn't be tested for in a polygraph because it's a feeling. You can only be tested on fact, on what you know, what you've seen. You know, doesn't matter how much you believe something. You know, if I believed that you'd broken into my home, it wouldn't be enough to pass a lie detector. I would have had to have seen you do it. I'm not, no disrespect, but you understand, it's based on fact. It's not based on what you think or what you believe or what you feel. It's only based on what you know.
And at that point, when you had that experience, we had that voice, your perspective must have changed then to something that's, you've gone from, was you excited or terrified at the time? And then the voice happened and then it changed your perspective?
It felt like something had reached inside of me and took the fear and angst away.
Yeah.
It was a pure loving feeling. And that's a good way to describe it, almost pure love. That we're connected in some way, on a spiritual level, on a soul level. It was a soul recognition, like we are a part of them and they are very much a part of us. I was overwhelmed with this euphoric feeling. I certainly didn't feel threatened at all.
That's incredible. That's absolutely incredible. It's a bit like when people have these shamanic moments when they've taken mushrooms or something like that. You just have this euphoric feeling that comes like pure love and energy, just the love of life and something like that. But from that experience that you've had from this craft, and it's given you something that's...
Do you know, if I could explain it as a Christian, I would say it felt like being touched by the hand of God.
Oh, do you know what? That's what I say when I have my mushroom trips. When I used to have them, I should say, that is one thing I used to say, is that it felt like the hand of God, being touched by the hand of God. It's something incredible.
Majestic.
Perfect.
You know, one of the things that came into my mind when this pyramid first emerged were these the gods of old.
Wow.
Like that other fella, Caz, isn't it? I can't remember his name, but the one that Ross Coulthard was interviewing, he said more or less the same thing you just said. When he had a contact with that, or whatever the craft looked like, you know, that egg kind of shaped craft, he just felt. That's the one. Yeah, he felt a spiritual connection, a hand of God, an uplifting, really powerful, overwhelming feeling. It almost made it. Well, it made a soldier cry. Made a soldier cry.
Yeah, Green Beret, in fact.
Yeah, I know.
And also Fred Baker, who was also interviewed by Ross Coulthard, who was went to be part of the psionics team, said and described a very similar craft, but from underneath. So he's seeing a huge triangle. This was, I saw it come in side on. So I saw the 3 dimensions, if you like. And he also described the smaller craft flying around it and also gives the same size of this object, which is enormous.
Maybe you and Jake Barber should have a chat, because that would be an interesting thing to do.
Yeah, it would be. Yeah, definitely. Has there been other sightings of? Has there been other sightings of this craft been spotted around Wales? Yeah, the round Wales specifically in recent years.
I've seen videos. I don't know if someone's like messing around or not. I haven't had a chance to verify them, but 2 years ago, someone posted a video, some large, similar shape looking thing. I don't know how big it was, but it was interesting. I just wasn't able to verify it. So it looked more like one of those impressive CGI people put together. But you never know, do you? But I mean,
I've since seen video of a tetrahedron above the pyramid, above the Pentagon. Sorry.
Yeah.
In 2018.
Somebody mentioned that with these sightings, and also one in Russia.
over
Yeah.
the Kremlin, and that was in 2009. So I started looking further into this, and there was one over Berlin, and there's been one over China in
Yes.
over very important buildings. So for me, there has to be another line of communication going on for them to even know the significance of these buildings. So who are
Yeah,
they?
I'm sorry, I was just gonna say that when you showed me that video of the one over the Pentagon, I really went into this in some detail. I got a video of it on my Rumble channel, and there's like 3 good videos of it. There's like one from Arlington Cemetery. There's another one over by some memorial, and there was another one where 2 people were driving around in the car. So you can't stop outside the Pentagon. You can't just pull up on the side and step out. No, you got to keep moving. And the good thing about that particular video is you can see them coming into the Pentagon, going around, and then coming up another end. There's trees and lampposts and other things that get into the foreground. So if they're CGIing all this, it's very impressive, but it's not. I know it's real. And the very similar thing we're seeing over here, the Kremlin. These are 2 of the most heavily guarded airspaces in the world, and yet there they are. Yeah. And what it looks very much like what Caz saw, but Caz was bigger, much bigger.
When you said they reminded you of you had a feeling that they were the ancient gods. Yeah. Again, I'm going to put a word into your. Do you think they could be what everybody refers to as the Anunnakis?
I wouldn't like to speculate, but what I did question were these what the Christians would call the angels of light. That we gave them wings to show they flew. It didn't mean they had them.
That's right.
There are no descriptions of them. There are no descriptions of the angels of light that appeared to Mary or the shepherds on the hill. They were just angels of light. I mean, you only got the birth of Christ story to know that it was a light that moved. I don't know. Yeah. I think it's all linked.
So do you think there's, from that point, do you think the extraterrestrial realm is connected to the spiritual realm? Do you think there's a connection there between the two? Because it correlates with the voices that you heard in your head.
Yes. Look, I think we're talking very much about different types here. Whether they're interdimensional, whether they're ultra-terrestrial, or whether they're extraterrestrial. We're talking about different types, and we shouldn't tar them all with the same brush. I do know this. Whatever they were alive, and they were conscious. And they love us for whatever reason. And I don't think, in a lot of cases, that we deserve it. But they do. They do, and we are connected in the most profound and deep way.
Do you think the military was summoning this sort of entity to come in?
If that were the case, they would have known when it was going to turn up. Why set an ambush for it? Why not use military defense land, which, as the crow flies, is only 40 miles away? Why use public land, private land, if they wanted to keep this secret?
Sure.
And it's certainly, we wouldn't have shot one of our own down.
If anyone knows the layout of Wales, I mean, there's only 2 heavily populated areas. That's up in the north and south. The mid area is mostly countryside, and you could put one of those over there very, very easily.
Nobody would
notice, but you wouldn't have a whole town or village maybe prying your eyes on it. So, as Caz said, you know, why bring it in over a public place like that? Don't make sense. Whatever it was coming, if it came here, I speculate, and I think I'm right on this. They came for their own reasons, not because the military asked them to.
Well, somebody who I believe was military, who made a comment on Wales Online, said that these were standard operating procedures, which kind of got my attention. And then he said, glad you've seen. Keep watching. More are coming. They come for what's theirs. What we have that belongs to them.
What again, speculation, but what would you think would that mean?
There was a lot of inference that perhaps the Royal Mint may have had something to do with this, or that the Royal Mint was a target. And it is one of the most protected buildings anywhere in Europe. And it wouldn't be beyond the realms of speculation to believe that if we really did have something that belonged to them, that we'd keep it in the most secure building in Europe.
Indeed. Indeed. Yeah,
But
that makes
the security used to be done by the Ministry of Defence for the Royal Mint. It's not anymore. Since June of 2016, that changed. And I wonder why it changed. Did they move what they had there? I don't know.
Is there any organization that's tried to stop you in your tracks and your research during the aftermath?
I was threatened. I had somebody, I've consequently closed my Facebook page, but I'm not on Facebook anymore. But I had somebody contact me through my Facebook page and said that they had an interest in the case. Would I meet with them and show them where it happened, etc.? And one of the things that I have now is that I am an empath. I feel people's feelings. I know it sounds strange, but it's true. This man was not an ordinary gentleman. He was military through and through. His legs were like cyclist sprinter legs, you know. He could have thrown me on his shoulder and sprinted with me for 5 miles and not even battered an eyelid. And I'm so grateful that I didn't meet him on my own. Stephen was with me. He's quite a big chap. This guy had chested up to David, who'd also come out, and he had his young child with him at the time. And this guy had gestured towards his young child and said, "Aren't you worried about what's going to happen to your kid?"
I'd have punched him in the face then and there.
Yeah.
Right. Well, when they extended that threat to me and to my family, said, "But I'm worried about what's going to happen to me. You know, I could have a fatal car accident. You know, accidents happen all the time." And they extended that threat to my family. That's when I decided something had, you know, I could agree to be ruled by fear, which I never have for my entire life. My father knocked the fear out of me when I was a kid. So I don't bow to fear. So it was a case of either I stood up and fought back or I laid down and died. And I chose to stand up and fight back.
Sorry, everyone. I just need a nature call. Sorry, I can't. I'm busted in, but I hope you don't mind. I'll be right back.
Yeah, go ahead. No, it's Gary. Go ahead. Go ahead. Was there road closures after the event? Wasn't there? Yeah. So was it the whole entire area of Pentyrch was actually completely quarantined to a certain degree?
Yeah, they closed all the major roads.
I believe one of them was the M4, was it?
The M4 was closed. The cameras were switched off for those junctions across the M4. Wow. I've spoken to a police officer who's traffic, and he told me that they were called in at lunchtime and told that they were working a double shift, but they weren't told why. They would have had to have brought officers in from outside of the area, according to one witness who stated that there are normally only 8 officers and a sergeant that are working that area at night. Excuse me. We put in several freedom of informations regarding that. And they actually said that they could find no information regarding road closures because, quote, the police officers involved no longer work for the organisation. If they can find no evidence, how do they know who's involved?
Sorry, Caz, don't worry.
Very, very strange indeed, man. Very strange. Sorry, I don't know if I'm cutting in, but could I take you back to the tetrahedron shape? Yeah. Because one thing I find fascinating is the best way I can describe it, but I know you're going to correct me, is that this thing fired out a lightning bolt. But I know you said something in the presentation that it was almost like plasma. Am I correct? Or okay. Could you?
It was fire. It was fire colored, like fingers, thick.
Like how you would expect a lightning bolt.
Out of the very corner of that pyramid, as it neared the ground, it ejected, like it reached out to touch the ground. So, you know, there's information that's been brought to my attention that I can't really talk about that may imply that there was something underground there.
Or it could, because when Gareth was on, he told us that there's a ley line that runs right through there.
Yeah. It runs right through my house and goes all the way to Stonehenge.
So do you think maybe maybe not looking for something, but because we believe that they use the energy from these ley lines, the interdimensionals?
Yes.
Because I'm also does things with spirits, so I understand about the ley lines, and there's energy there.
Well, hidden. The only reason I bring the ley lines thing up is because you can go back to ancient history and see that wherever those lines were, where they converge and that they are the strongest, you will find that medieval castles were built on them, stone circles and things like Stonehenge were built on them. And amazingly, Vatican, all spiritual places have these incredible churches, but amazingly, major UFO sightings are happening on them too. It's not just, I mean, look, I am aware of at least, that there's the Rendlesham Forest, there's the Pentyrch, there's the Nottingham, there's the Sheffield, there's that one that happened in Scotland. I think the guy had his trousers torn. There's the Denby Lights one case, which I done. There's also another one, which I'm looking into right now. I may as well give it the name. It's called the Pensan UFO Mystery. There's a lady in the chat. Her name's Leanne Wood. She had an amazing sighting up in Colwyn Bay and Prestatyn with her husband, and it's just continuously. I mean, even when the Shadow R1 plane took off and decided to head down to southwest England, around Cornwall, Truro, Exmoor, and all that, it followed the ley line back up until it landed on Pentyrch. Now, what's the significance of that? Well, why are these very spiritual, high energy, very connected places having major UFO sightings on them? That's a question that I think everyone should look into, but it's happening. And I've had some people go, oh, they're on about ley lines. Well, I'm sorry, ask the UFO guys why they're doing that, because I'm pretty sure there's a reason for it. I haven't figured it out, but I'm sure if there is an energy or a power source that they can tap into, there must be a connection between that and everything. Because, I mean, look, some of the materials that have been recovered from other UFO sightings are actually in the ground around the area where this happened, like silicon quartz, limestone type of things. And if anyone has ever done any kind of research, those kinds of materials are on your phone, the touch screens, the things that allow the fast energy charges and things like that. So, look into it for yourselves. I'm not going to tell you why that is. I'm just saying there's something to it, okay? I mean, there's energy transfers and there's other things going on.
It could have been charging itself up from the ley line because it seemed to get brighter. UFOs in space seemed flying towards electrical storms on Earth, seem to go in quite dim and come out quite bright. So are they charging themselves up somehow?
There is a theory I came across many years ago. It's like how do I describe this? There are certain frequencies at certain levels in the layers of the atmosphere and above the Earth, and there's a layer, right, an artificial one they reckon they discovered, right, that's not supposed to be there. And whenever UFO activities were happening, they said that this particular grid was always getting activated, and it activates on the frequency of the human mind and the human heart, or at the same time, whatever the Earth is vibrating at that time matches that too. No, I don't know much about it myself, but I keep coming back to it. It always connects, and I reckon the pagans and the old ancient civilizations must have understood this, because why build these incredible monuments on them if it doesn't mean anything?
Yeah, indeed.
Frequency is everything.
Yeah, frequency is everything. It's energy. It's a power source. It's an energy life of things as well. So I reckon I'm just going to speculate with the hand of lightning that Caz was on about. I have seen LiDAR of the actual area. The Scotland people actually had it, and what I discovered is that there is underground cave systems there. There is old underground cabins. Probably can't get into them now because they're probably all worn and dangerous to walk around. But I also said to Caz, if you see the old stones in the field where this thing happened, if you look over to the other side of it, there are stones buried in the ground, and they all follow a line, and they all lead back to a very interesting a cave, an underground. There's an old underground chasm. Oh, what the hell? Burial chamber there. And according to the Welsh
Interesting.
archaeology, it's about 6,000 years old. So
Same with Smilag Woods, though. All of our ancient kings and queens were buried there.
yeah, there's mounds up there
Wow.
too. There's a
And it was highly revered by the Druids. There's a healing well there. But the interesting fact that Gary and I found doing our investigations in Smilag Woods, there's an area, even today, where the EMF is so dangerously high that it would be very dangerous for a human being to stay there overnight in that one place. It's further up from the crash site. There are no electrical cables. There are no above cables. There is nothing that would give off that sort of energy, but there is something under the ground there, something extremely powerful. So much so that the EMF goes off the chart. So I don't know.
Caz, you said you grew up in Glastonbury, yeah?
Yeah.
Have you ever been to Avebury by any chance? Stone Circles.
Stonehenge.
The stone circles in Avebury. These big, huge stones. It's a bit like Glastonbury. It's pretty much on the ley line. And I tell you what, every time I go to these places, it's got such a strange feeling. I mean, this is like bang on where the ley lines are. And I remember one time I went to these stone circles, and I kept on getting migraines every time I go there. It's like the energy field is like magnetic. It's just unbelievable. So I understand that sort of aspect. I was just wondering with Pentyrch, is it sort of the same sort of feeling? You kind of get that with those sort of places. It's like, oh, there's something a bit odd about this place.
We've tried to cover every type of investigation, from Geiger counters and EMF to having every type of esoteric investigation conducted, including dowsing rods and crystals and spiritualist mediums coming into the area. And as they approach the area, some of them start to feel extremely nauseous. It's very powerful. It was very powerful.
I gotta get my rumpus up there, man.
To answer one question, I think it's Bob Lazar that asked.
I saved it because I was going to come back to the end, so I've got them saved. I did want to say, guys, I'm not ignoring your questions. What I'm doing is I'm starring them. So when we at the end of the show, and I'll ask people questions, I've got the questions ready. But do you want to answer that? Because I was going to ask that. That's why I put it up.
Okay.
Did it make a sound?
Nothing. There was no sound from any of the vehicles except for the aircraft. There were no sound, no downdraft, no nothing from these things. Absolutely silent. There was no resistance to them. Nothing. It was phenomenal. At 200 yards away, when that hand of lightning came out, the planes were approaching from behind me. So if there was a sound, it would have been doubtful that I would have heard it. The Cole Winston witness, or witnesses, I should say, said that it was a static feeling, that their dog was going bonkers because there was this static feeling in the house. And they saw the craft from the underside, and they said it had like a light green hue, surrounded by red lights.
Wow. When you made the connection, the telepathic connection was made with, is it the triangle graph?
No, the barrel. I didn't know at the time that it was telepathic. I didn't know if David had heard it and that it was audible, or if it was just in my head. But now I know that it was only me that heard it.
And was it a two-way thing? Like, was you able to talk to it, or it just gave you instructions?
It just gave me the instructions, and the only words that came out of my mouth was "I will." If I'd had that cognitive ability, I would have asked them who they were and where they were from. But I had no cognitive function at all.
Well, I mean, we're just normal folks, so when we're seeing something, what are we thinking? We're thinking, "Holy Christ, what is this?"
I just had the biggest life-changing experience ever.
The first thing on your mind is not let me grab my phone and take a video of this.
Tried. The only time that I thought about filming it was when the barrel was above me. But even then, I didn't want to avert my eyes for a single second. I wanted to capture everything. So I'd unzipped my pocket and took my phone out, glanced down for a second. It wouldn't even switch on. It wouldn't even switch on.
Well, with the barrel ones that you said that you could see static.
Yes.
Was there anything in, or it was just static?
Just static, but the static was mixing.
Like trying to form something, or
No, just
in your
stirring around
opinion?
inside.
Wow.
So it's like white noise on a TV screen, but it wasn't flat like that. It was stirring inside.
Wow.
That's a
Wow.
very
And this
accurate
was
way of.
like rotation, basically.
Yes, it was. It was mixing like a cake mix. That's the way to
Amazing.
describe it. Like it was turning and swirling inside, but it was all white noise, if you like, electricity. But they were conscious somehow, and I know that because of the way that it made. If it was just a machine or a drone or a probe that this main craft had put out, it doesn't explain how it made me feel when it scanned me.
Yeah.
Because that was pure love, pure elation. It was, as I say, like being touched by an angel or by the hand of God.
Such an amazing experience, isn't
And
it?
It really is. It really is.
I couldn't really prove that until Jake Barber came forward, and he was almost using the same terminology. And I stayed up to watch a live on TikTok by a guy called Tinfoil Hat. Dan, his name is, very good. And I actually cried when I heard him describe it for the first time. And he's the only other person that I've ever heard talk about that. And he was a Green Beret. He was the boogeyman if they were going to send one. And he said he was crying because of how it made him feel.
Wow.
And that was on a crash retrieval.
It's amazing. It's stories like that. I mean, a lot of people kind of like a bit stigmatized of what Jake Barber, what he's coming forward and experienced. And what I honestly could tell, like what you've seen is so true. And I know the people in chat are saying the same thing. It's like you can clearly see that you're not lying, and it's make you think, okay, you've had the same experience as Jake Barber, and I think might have to take Jake Barber's accounts more seriously and not just immediately dismiss it.
Or put it the other way, Jake Barber's had the same account that Caz has had.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't have pushed the authorities, or Gary and I would not have pushed the authorities to the extremes that we have. I mean, we had South Wales Police facing prison, which I thought was quite ironic because they refused to answer any of our questions regarding the 25th and 26th of February 2016. They tried to cover the military exercise with a police counter-terrorism drill, thinking that they'd never have to answer us. And they did have to answer us. We took them to the Information Commissioner's office and held them in contempt. And they either answered us or they went to prison. So they had to answer us, and there were no police counter-terrorism exercises either.
There is an interesting thing with this whole ICO thing that me and Caz did. Originally, when we started doing FOIs, I sent one off to the Royal Mint, and that's a guarded building because coin gets printed there with the king head on it, I guess. The question was quite simple, did you get informed about the exercise? Did it disturb you at all? That's just a basic question. They got back to us and said that the Welsh Counter-Terrorism Unit had basically informed them of this. That's what it was. And then years later, when Caz and I are questioning the police, trying to get them to answer our FOIs, we finally take it to the Information Commission officer, of course, and they don't take everyone's case. You'd be amazed how difficult it is to get them to do this. You've got to at least have an FOI sent in, then you've got to do an internal review, and then you've got to send that evidence in if you feel they haven't fully justified their response, if they haven't answered your question. So when it finally got to the ICO and they got back to us, the South Wales Police turned around and said, no exercises were planned. We asked the Welsh Counter-Terrorism Unit lot. Well, hang on a second now. You just said the Royal Mint were the ones who were informed by the Welsh Counter-Terrorism Unit that there was an exercise taking place. Now the South Wales Police are telling us the very same people said there wasn't any. So who's getting their stories mixed up here? Not us.
Yeah, they tried to change the story. I can read the letter, if you like, that I sent to South Wales Police.
They get wrapped up in their lies all the time.
They tried to hide behind two exemptions that certainly don't apply. I have the Freedom of Information document, so this is why Gary calls me Barrister Clarke.
Yeah.
So if you wouldn't mind, I'll just read very quickly what I said. Dear South Wales Police, Thank you for your response to my Freedom of Information request, requesting whether you conducted a counter-terrorism exercise on the 25th and 26th of February 2016 in the Llantrisant area of South Wales. You quoted 2 exemptions, national security and law enforcement. Having given your exemptions some consideration and wholeheartedly agreeing that national security should be a priority, I do not agree that your exemptions are valid in this case. You state, to disclose whether or not the information is held would undermine the force's capabilities, which consequently would be detrimental to their ability to deal with the ongoing terrorist threat we face. It would be counterproductive to place any information into the public domain about any counter-terrorism exercises, which would inform the general public, especially those with malintent, that counter-terrorism tactics, techniques and procedures would have been on display or will be in the future. Counter-terrorism operations, by their very nature, are fundamental to the safety and protection of the country and the public at large. Therefore, to confirm or deny that this information is held negatively impacting tactics, techniques and procedures, which is not in the public interest. And I went on to say, on the 28th of June 2016, in the Llantrisant area of South Wales, you did indeed conduct a police counter-terrorism exercise in some disused warehouses adjacent to the Royal Mint and Llantrisant Common. A letter was issued to all residents of Llantrisant and the surrounding areas to warn of this exercise in advance. Posters were also erected giving notice to the aforementioned exercise. Did the rules for national security or your ability to police not apply then, or indeed the public interest? This is just one example of the police counter-terrorism exercises being announced in advance, where they were advertised by the mainstream media, on the television and on local radio stations. Surely notifying people in advance, sometimes months in advance, would be a risk to national security. I'm asking about an alleged exercise that took place 7 years ago and would in no way impact national security or your techniques and procedures. Police counter-terrorism exercises have always been announced in advance in every major city in England, Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland. They've also been announced on a Europe-wide counter-terrorism exercise in advance. This subject has never been a secret until now, for these 2 dates specifically. You mentioned several times your tactics, techniques and procedures. I'm not asking for any of those, but here is a link to a video on YouTube where a senior police officer is giving a running commentary of one of your police counter-terrorism exercises in action. And the link I sent was the Assistant Commissioner herself. This is just one example, but there are many more which I can provide on request. I feel you are deliberately trying to avoid my question, which is reasonable. And if national security or your ability to police did not apply in the country's capital and in every major city in the United Kingdom and across the whole of Europe, why then will you not answer any of my questions regarding the 25th and 26th of February 2016 in the Llantrisant area of South Wales? If you do not answer my request, I will ask for an internal review, providing more evidence if necessary. If that fails, I will lodge my complaint with the Police Complaints Committee and my MP. In the famous words of the late great President J.F. Kennedy, the very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society. The law requires that you answer me, and the exemptions you have given have never applied. Police counter-terrorism exercises have always been advertised in advance on the mainstream news, in the media, on the internet and on the radio. And I would appreciate a very quick and timely reply and not leave me waiting the lawful time allowed. That's what I said to South Wales Police. They tried to ignore me. So Gary and I took them to the ICO and they faced charges of contempt, which is 2 years in prison and a £5,000 fine for each one of their officers that failed to answer me.
Wow. Fair play. I need to
Oh,
get
yeah,
used to
we-
write
we
some of my
drilled them.
emails.
We drilled them all that time.
Well, it took a while, you know, that police counter-terrorism exercises, was it the extremist counter-terrorism unit? Tried very hard not to answer us. We do have an ICO investigation, and we had to provide our evidence. They don't just take anyone's case, but they took ours. And Jeremy Vaughan from Chief of Police did indeed have to answer us. And not until the 20th of April 2023 So it took almost 7 years to get to that point where we could, because they dragged their heels.
Yeah.
And there were no police counter-terrorism exercises either. So I did the Royal Mint and the hospital tried to imply that they were given prior notification of such an exercise, which never took place.
Hmm.
It was another cover-up.
Do you think within time, within the next, I don't know, it's like with JFK files, you can wait 60 years, you never get the answer. You might get like small little drips of like information come out, but do you reckon you'll find out the full scope of this so-called, not saying the exercise, but what actually happened if you just keep on?
The closest thing that
forward.
we got to an admittance was one of our last freedom of informations that we put in. And Gary, you were talking about this the other day, when the information or the questions that we asked were all UFO related. And they wrote back and said that they held, this is the Ministry of Defense, that they held the information, but yet it was all exempt under Section 26.
There we go. There we go.
Yeah, that particular FOI, I think, was on the Craig Charles show. They basically
He read it out, didn't he?
Yeah, he read a good portion of it out, indeed, and it was all to do with the green lights and the bomb explosions, the large craft, the military presence. The question was pretty simple, you know. We asked them about all those things, and they said they do hold that information, but they ain't going to tell us because it's exempt from. It's Section 26. It's their get out of jail card, you know, and they can play it anytime they want.
One thing
They
I
have
would
that
like
information.
the E3 Sentry plane as cameras, it would have filmed the whole event from the air. The reconnaissance and surveillance aircraft too have cameras. So do the C-130s. And so do the helicopters. They would have filmed the whole thing. And even if they just released part of it, the public have a right to know, even though I've been told by military personnel, we don't have a right to know. We deserve to know, and we should know, so that we might know the difference. Because there are some that are hostile, and there are those that are not. The majority of them are not, but there are two types that are. And that's not necessarily to say that they would attack us, but they don't value our life.
Indeed. Indeed.
You know.
And again,
value a lab rat, but a lab rat certainly values its life, you know.
I was just going to say about the military. I mean, when we did that ICO with the police, again, we took it to we asked the MOD and the Defense Secretariat. I've mentioned this before. I just basically asked, were there any low-flying training exercises? Were there any planned air exercises? Were there any on-the-ground exercises? Anything that you were doing in the South Wales area for the February of 2016, which is where they say Exercise Chameleon happened. And they just said it in plain, simple English. There were no exercises of any kind planned in the South Wales area for the whole of February 2016. So anyone, and I'm going to reiterate this point because I'm sick and tired of people constantly say it was just an exercise. How can it be an exercise when the South Wales police admit there was none, when the Welsh counter-terrorism said there was none, when the information officers had forced the police to say that, and the MOD, RAF, and the Joint Forces Command are all saying there is no exercise, and there's no paperwork with the CAA or the military aviation. No one has nothing, and there is no way you are going to get an exercise of that size without any paperwork. You can't even take, say if this was like one of those handheld guns, you know, with the fire in blanks. You know how much paperwork you got to sign for one of those? What do you think you'd have to sign for something like, you know, £1 million?
There's no information. They have no paperwork at all for what went on that night. And I'll, hang on, I do have the questions that I asked them regarding paperwork for that night. It's on a Freedom of Information document, and the number is FOI 2022/02929. And I asked, what person, organisation or public body did you receive written permission from to conduct this exercise over private land? And the Ministry of Defence said that they do not hold the information. What information was given to the local authority or local government for such a loud and disturbing exercise over a congested area? Again, the MOD has no information. Were any restrictions placed upon you by the landowner, organisation or public body prior to this exercise? Again, the Ministry of Defence holds no information. What written permission did you receive to land your helicopters in silent hours in a congested area. Again, the Ministry of Defence holds no information. And can you supply a copy of the detailed recce, including a photocopy of the map and routes? Yet again, the Ministry of Defence holds no information. They had $4.5 billion worth of equipment in the air, or £3.8 billion worth of equipment, and they don't have a single piece of paperwork to back it up. Not one.
Mm-hmm.
And when you push them in the corner, Section 26.
Section 26.
Yeah.
I do have the document that Gary was just talking about, the Freedom of Information document, and it's dated 1st of March 2023. If anybody wants to look this up, the reference number is FOI 2023/1466. And it says, thank you for your email dated 3rd of February 2023 requesting the following information. I wish to make a Freedom of Information request, please. Could you please confirm if any information is held within the Ministry of Defence, the Defence Infrastructure Organisation, or any office that would hold any information pertaining to any day or night military exercises or day or night low-flying exercises for the area of South Wales for the time of February 2016? And their reply, a search for the information is now being completed within the Ministry of Defence, and I can confirm that no information in the scope of your request is held. There were no programmed air defence exercises in South Wales in February 2016. That comes from the Air Command Secretariat. How did I know on the morning of the 26th of February it was not an exercise?
Well, it's been nearly 10 years, Caz. I'm still going to prove you wrong one way or another.
I've been asking you to, Gary.
Still trying.
So why were they here, and how did I know? I knew because I saw it, and I saw what they were doing, and they did shoot it down. In fact, there's a possibility that they shot down 2 of the barrels too.
I mean, you should also take note that the planes that were circling 3 days prior, there's no NOTAM or paperwork for them either. And if you
Well, the NOTAM that they did slip in, everybody knows that a NOTAM is a notice to airmen, and it creates a bubble in the sky. There's a minimum height and a maximum height, and there's a boundary, and they're not allowed to fly within 3 nautical miles of that boundary for an exercise, and yet they exceeded that boundary by over 50 miles, breaking not only the distances but the minimum heights that all aviation says that they have to abide by for the type of aircraft they were flying. They broke every rule in the book, and they were flying with their transponders off. They were flying with their lights off. They would only do that in a
they were giving chase to some of the barrels that managed to get out of the area.
And that tells you in itself that that's possibly a covert mission they were on.
Yes. Look, there's certainly evidence of absence, shall we say.
Yeah.
The NASA's Earthwatch that Gary can talk about, the whole week is missing, up until and including the 26th of February 2016. And on the 27th, it all goes back to normal. The whole week is missing.
Yeah, that was an interesting thing to find. Basically, yeah, I talked about this last time, but for those of you who aren't familiar with what that was about, it's NASA World View. That's the name of the actual site. And every day, like I say, there's a satellite that goes around the Earth, and it covers it in layers until it builds up this whole 2-dimensional picture of the Earth. And you can see what clouds, formations, and things are happening above the Earth. And every day it's updated daily. It's a constant daily thing. And yet when it comes to the 22nd of February up until about the 28th of February for 2016, the entire satellite just cuts off. And I've gone into another satellite website that's called Zoom Earth. Now this does it in AM and PM. Interestingly enough, the AM ones seem to be there, but the PM ones seem to be missing. So somebody's cutting something off there that they don't want you to see. That's very specifically targeted.
There's evidence of absence, not an absence of evidence, and that's.
But it seems to be all coordinated. So there's someone controlling. Because I don't believe, you know what I mean. There's somebody controlling, because you're talking about stuff from NASA.
Yeah.
I asked them about it. I said, basically, you know, can you explain to me why there is a significant portion of your data missing? And they didn't really answer my question. They just said, this is what the satellite is. And if you have any questions, there's the technical manual. Oh, I don't need to know the technical manual. Well, I'm pretty sure you're very good at working these things out. I just want to know why it's missing.
See, in a way, they just didn't want to talk to you because they normally say that what happens is when the satellite that's taking the image goes out of a certain way, that's how come the camera feed is lost for a short while. But you're saying this was lost for what, a week?
A whole week.
Yeah.
So they don't want to answer you. They don't want to answer you.
That's when the planes started coming down to South Wales, the ZZ418 and the ZG996, the Shadow R1 plane, the Army Air Corps, and those two. Oh, this is something I haven't mentioned, actually. I know that the I-Star, yeah, the E3 Century, I know it was there because the one witness who I really want to speak to, who posted a comment on South Wales Awakening, his name, he calls himself Mike Embry. I believe that's an alias to protect who he is. He wrote down everything, practically what he saw that night. And the days leading up to it, he said he saw an E3 Century there on Wednesday. He saw it there on Thursday. He was walking his dog late at night because that's just something he did. Tinnacoid Road. If you see the map overhead, let me see if I can draw this out on this little screen here. This is the gate where Caz and Dave were. These are the fields. Up here is where our craft would have let out the lightning, and there's a road running along there. That's called Tinnacoid Road. And that's where he was walking his dog. Now, he's somewhere up here now, going back into the neighborhood. But he turned around and he could see it coming in. He saw it himself. And he said he saw all the various orbs and the green light that went northwest. So many details were in that nice worded comment that he left. I said he couldn't be making this up because I didn't know anything about this until I started looking into it. The only other two people who could have verified would have been the Caz and Dave. Do you know what I mean?
I didn't think about it. So it wasn't me.
Anything online for quite some time.
And the diction used in the spelling wouldn't have been me either.
Yeah, I know. It was a pretty scrappy kind of comment. It was all jumbled and the grammar wasn't all the best. But I guess that's just somebody typing it fast on something. Anyway, where was I going with this? Yeah, I looked into South Wales Aviation Group. That's like a military enthusiastic watch group. And there it was, NATO. And NATO E3 was actually there. And the I-Star program, right, stands for Intelligence, Surveillance, Targeting, Acquisition, Reconnaissance. Now, that works in tandem with the Shadow R1. And what these two do is that they together retrieve all this information and they can send that to their on-the-ground units, in the air units, satellite communications into various places. They also come with jamming equipment and things that can knock out telephone communications. I would surmise maybe they were knocking out the phones, or maybe the proximity of the craft that knocked out Caz and Dave's phone. It even affected Jacob Coleman's phone when he was close to the battles, when it was by the Apache in by the Smilog Woods area. We've even got some people who came into the fields not long after I started investigating it. Some friends and other people, they started taking pictures, and their pictures were being taken off, or the phones went funny. So this is something that people keep asking, what about the pictures? What about the phone? What, all this data? I said, yeah, fine, yeah. You can take pictures, but have you tried taking a picture at night in pitch black? Trust me.
One person that visited the fields here took photographs before they left home, came to the fields, took over 40 photographs here, went home and took further photographs before they got home, went to look at those photographs, and every photograph they took in the fields wasn't there.
Something else that I mentioned last week, I was on about the radiation. I mean, this is something that is so consistent with every single UFO event that's ever been investigated, where a craft or something like that has been seen in a field, mountain, farmland, or countryside. If it gets near the ground or on the ground, it leaves radiation there for a couple of weeks. I'm surprised, but given the size of what Caz and David saw, I figured, well, it could still be there after nearly 20 months. And surprisingly, it was. It lasted nearly 5 years. And it diminished over time until eventually it all ended up in the hot spot, So work that out. And I've said that the electromagnetic electromagnetic field or the electromagnetic radiation, only the magnetic field was registering. Now, that is something I'm finding a little bit odd even today, because I said, if you get a charged particle and it moves forward, it creates an electrical and a magnetic field. And if you've got the scanners, you can break it down into individual components and even find out what the RF frequency is if you've got the tri-meters, as they call them. And only the magnetic field was reading. And I asked people who know about this stuff, can you please explain to me why that is? Because I've got Smilog Woods here, and I've got Pentyrch fields here. The surrounding areas and all those areas are not showing any radiation or magnetic field strength. But yet in the areas where everything's happening, it's spiking quite substantially. And if you stay in those areas long enough also, you get what you call low frequency, was it EMF sickness?
ELF.
Low frequency sort of stuff. And I mean, everyone who came to those fields at least once experienced. I mean, I experienced it 5 or 6 times. It wasn't a joyful thing afterwards, because you're doing the research, but afterwards you're in for a rough 48. A rough 48 hours.
It was impossible to do repeated tests on consecutive days.
No,
because you needed time to recover from being.
I 6. I mean, I keep telling people. I said, look, my skin was red. I had blotchy red skin, and you can see it's quite pale up here. I mean, I'm a very pale person on some areas, but that was all red, like blotchy kind of red, like rash kind of red. And if you took your finger like that with it, right, it was painful. It was really, really, it was acting on my nervous system.
Wow.
And I would like to point out a couple of other things that have never been, well, we talked about them, but they're not often discussed. Donna, Caz's neighbor, who actually came into the fields with them a couple of times. Donna has a condition which renders one side of her face a bit numb, or she doesn't have much feeling there. But on that particular day in a Caz, she had a lot of burning sensation, didn't she? And she couldn't get out of that ball patch area. She was stuck there. David had to come and grab her and take her out because she was frozen stiff, or something was making her.
It felt like there was something still there, that there was something watching. She was terrified.
Is that the same place you experienced the missing time, Caz?
I experienced the missing time whilst I was still at the gate, but I didn't know that I had missing time. For David and I, it seemed like we were only out there for 10 or maybe 15 minutes. Everything happened so quickly. So that being said, if this event started at 2:30, that should have been 2:45, 10 to 3 at the outside. When we came back, 15 minutes to drink a cup of hot chocolate, and David went home, so that's 3:05. The explosion was at 4:21. Where did the hour go? And my stomach flipped when I found that out, because I didn't know I'd lost time, because it happened to me. It was only when the time of the explosion was established that I knew that something was wrong. When you do the calculation, there's an hour's missing time minimum. And I didn't know. I'm one of those people that like to know what's going on. And so for me, to have an hour's missing time, that's
to do with nervous system and your cognitive functions to understand how you measure time. You've just lost a whole hour. What the hell happened there? That is a consistent thing with people who have been very close to these things. Some people are driving their cars.
Something I was talking about with Hidden before was the party that I threw at my home for all of the radio hosts and bloggers. Can you just explain a little bit about what happened?
Yes, this was when we still had some people on our site, no longer are. But Caz decided that she wanted to thank everyone who had helped her and supported her. So it was June, I believe, and she held a barbecue, and it was very nice, lots of lovely food. And that night, we decided we were going to try and call in these craft or have a sky watch. We didn't mean them any harm. We just wanted to see them. And we were all sitting there up on that very same spot where Caz and David were watching that very night. And what happened is we started to call them in, also ask them just to show themselves. And would you believe it? They were actually in the area, or just a bit further beyond where the craft had actually been. All these white triangles or white shining orbs, they would flash for a few seconds and then disappear. You couldn't get your camera on them quick enough to take a picture. But when we saw them, like, yes, we were all super happy. It just shows that there is a very active area there and over Smilog. But I mean, it just goes to show it's not easy to take a picture of these things, even when you're expecting them.
Mm.
Do you know what I mean?
No one was ready.
You're so wrapped up in it. You're so wrapped up in the incredibleness of it all.
Oh, indeed. Yeah, I get that.
Yeah.
We had the
No, I'm
big
the same.
white one above the trees that just seemed to get bigger and bigger and brighter, and everybody was just staring at it.
Yeah, it went like that, and it went.
Gone.
I'll just be quick, and I'll say it's pointless me making a public appeal because I'm just another bare bum in the shower, mate. That's all it is. So they'll just say, "Who's this guy? Who's this long-haired hippie asking for this?" So it's pointless. But here it is: public appeal, information. Give it to us.
Get in contact with Ross Coulthard if anyone wants to, because he's the more widely known journalist that can do these things with people.
Yeah, I'm so glad I asked Ross to get involved on this case. And this is before he found David Grush and crash retrieval teams, or evidence of crash retrieval teams. This is before he found Jake Barber and what he experienced, or the psionics team, and Fred Baker and what he witnessed, which is a very similarly sized craft to what I saw, but from underneath. And even the gentleman that was with him, who is part of the psionics team and had been for 20 years, it was only the second time they'd seen what they call the mothership.
I just wanted to get back to one thing though that I found very interesting. Now you had a lie detector test.
Yes.
That you paid for out of your own pocket.
Yes.
And could you explain more about the people that gave you this test? Because I think this is very important as well.
It was very hard to get the test. There are a lot of hoops you have to jump through in order to take a test in the first place. You can't be on drugs of any kind, and you can't be on medication of any kind, just to differentiate.
I'm ruled out.
You can't suffer with a mental health condition, for example, or suffer with psychosis. So I tried the two best companies in Europe first, and it was very difficult to get. I had actually this one guy on loudspeaker. I was waiting for his call. We were all in a meeting. The call came through, and he actually threatened to fail me before he'd even tested me. Gary's a witness to that.
I heard him say it.
To me, Caz, you're not going to get the answers you're looking for. So, having learnt my lesson from the first two attempts to try and get a lie detector, I refused to discuss what my lie detector was about with the secretary or with the PA, and I would only discuss it with my polygraph examiner. And I didn't know who that person was going to be, because you don't know. There's no direct line for them. The appointments are made via the company for their own protection. This lady is called Carrie Austin, and she is the leading forensic polygraph examiner in the country. She works for the Canadian government, the American government, the American police, and the British government. She invented the pre-test for polygraphs. She's not just anyone. And my results went before a panel. It was not just the opinion of one person. My results went before a panel, because it was discovered during my polygraph examinations that I have a signal inside of me that looks like a magnetic wave, and it's constant and unchanging. And I didn't know about that until I took the polygraphs.
Wow.
Which I passed, by the way, guys. Which I passed.
How many did you take?
Chris Watts was tested on, and he didn't do too well, did he?
How many did you take, Caz? It was just the one?
3.
3.
And you
passed every single one?
And I passed them all, yeah.
There you go, folks. There you
and
go.
I know that I can't remember the name of the machine, but it is very, very
That's
sensitive.
by 5,000. And it
Yeah,
tests you on 11 different levels.
Yeah, they are really, really sensitive. I mean, people say, oh, anyone can pass a lie detector. No, you can't.
Do you know, I was so nervous going in there, even though I knew I was telling the truth. And I'd hate for anyone to have to sit one of those if you're not telling the truth. It's so intimidating. You've got cameras at all angles. You're wired up to machinery. You know, even your examiner, there's no emotion. Absolutely none. They are just, you know, their eyes go through you.
This is something else, isn't it, that I wanted to just bring up. I mean, it's not just Carrie Austin who examined the results. She sent that to her panel, and they all collated together. Yeah, so, yeah, so, you know, you work that out. I mean, and that's, so what do we say now? Caz paid all them off too? And you put the EMF in the field, you snap the trees and smart look, you drop your hanky for the thing. So all these people are saying it's all a load of nonsense. I mean, give me a break.
Caz, come on, if you did all that and there ain't even a drink in it for us.
Loaded, mate, honestly.
You know,
there are a few things that we had to dismiss. For example, somebody said that what I saw were flares. Well, I think I'd know the difference between flares and a pyramid, but let's go with that for now. So the RAF were contacted independently from Gary and I. It's actually illegal for them to use red flares in an exercise over private land, but there were no flares used that night, so that gets rid of that idea. And as for parachutists wearing flares on their ankles, I wouldn't recommend it unless they wanted to be a burning fire inferno by the time they hit the ground.
Can I just say something? I mean,
yeah, sure.
I mean, the highest point. I'll go. I want to just say this because this is a good way to introduce the size of the craft. A lot of people ask this question. The length of the fields is around 1,000 feet. The trail of EMF that Caz and Dave, the way the thing was moving and the path that it took. Later on, I discovered the path into that area. That was 960 odd feet. And of course, when Caz, I asked her, okay, if you're looking at the bottom and you had to do the arc, you know, degree of arc, on it, you know, using some trigonometry, you get about 1,000 feet. So I'm saying if this is parachuters then, they would have to have been in free fall for 4 minutes from 1,000 feet. How come we don't see dead parachuters on the floor?
It's not only that, I mean,
break this stupid stuff down. It just makes you laugh.
David and I had described how this pyramid had moved and where it went before any tests were done. And to find the EMF trail again, it was something that almost brought me to tears because I felt vindicated that somebody had found some evidence that it was there. And the EMF was also above the hedge and the tree where the barrels were, which is also important.
See, I also think what's very compelling is that you took not one, not two, but 3 lie detector tests. Because if you just took one and you passed, people say, well, you could have fluked it. But to pass all 3?
Yeah.
It's impossible to pass all 3. Unless you're telling the truth, that is.
Exactly.
Then it is. Yeah.
There's the one exception, you know, if you're being truthful. And there was no deception indicated. Truthful was the answer. So I wouldn't have paid for it myself. I wouldn't have subjected myself to a polygraph examination if I was not telling the truth. It's as simple as that. If somebody else had, you know, said to me, or, you know, for a moment, let's just take this from the beginning. If I wasn't telling the truth, okay, when Gary first mentioned, we're going to go to the police or we're going to go to the Ministry of Defence, if I wasn't telling the truth, I'd have been, oh no, don't need to bother them, Gary. Let's just leave them out of it. But I'm the opposite. Yes, let's do this. Let's take it to them. And not only did we have to unravel the military exercise public statement that was put out in the newspapers, but also the police counter-terrorism drill and the other agencies that were involved trying to back up South Wales Police that could neither provide any evidence for any prior notification that they've alleged, even though one company, or actually the hospital, I should say, had taken an excerpt from an alleged email that they had, even though they couldn't provide the email.
Sorry, I just saw a question. Am I on X? Yeah, I am on there, actually. Just type in my name, and my little logo is a red dragon, so if you find that, that's me.
Oh, I think I got you, so I'll add that into the description box after the show.
Yeah, I'll try and get the link for that. Actually, I'll give it to you so you can pop it there.
Okay.
So I do have a little letter from the king. That, you know, Gary and I were the first people to do this, to write to the king and ask for him to instigate a process of disclosure in the United Kingdom to stay in line with what America are trying to do in Congress, and he refused. He said he couldn't help us.
Even though they're saying in the media recently they want to do that, don't they?
I find it intriguing, don't you? That no other UFO investigators have written to the monarch.
As far as we can know, yeah, I don't think anyone has.
No, not from I'm aware of. No.
We had a UFO actually stop us from going to the Senate and having a public inquiry into the events of what happened that night.
That's why I'm curious as to did he actually see that letter, or did his secretary intercept it?
Probably.
Because sorry, Charles is very into this. He loves the UFOs. He loves the paranormal. He's one of those cats. So
do you think it's a coincidence then that he just happened to be at RAF St. Athan on the 26th of February 2016 in South Wales? Or William, or David Cameron for that matter. And I've had it on good authority that David Cameron turned up at GE Aviation in Caerphilly, which is an obviously engineering place, and his visit was not announced. So he turned up unannounced, and he too was at RAF St. Athan by 7:30 that night, along with the now King Charles and Prince William. And as you know, 2 heirs to the throne are not allowed to travel on the same flight. But they did that.
True. That's so true.
There is something else. There is something. I mean, that plane in it that they traveled on, I've said this before. We know that it came into St. Athan, the ZE700 from RAF Norfolk, which is, like I say, where they keep all the royal families' charter planes, and only the top brass are allowed to fly on it. It came into St. Athens that afternoon, and flew off in the evening to America because I've been able to track its movements through its ICAO codes. And then it came back the next day, and just basically that was the last we ever heard of it. But then what's interesting is that a month or so later, 2 months later, Barack Obama, who was the president of the United States, decided to make a stop to Britain while he was on a tour. I don't believe this was like a UN summit or a NATO meeting or anything. He just came here, visited the royal family and David Cameron on that very same trip, and I'm like, that's a little bit suspicious in my opinion, because I don't know. I'm going to speculate, but I do believe he was discussing the incident that day.
Well, it goes further. When Biden came over, and he was flying down to Cornwall for the G7, and they just happened to fly over Pentyrch. Surely, London to Cornwall is a straight line. Why come to South Wales?
You do know that there was a sighting that day, didn't you?
There was what?
There was a UFO sighting. 4 orange orbs were flying over Merthyr Tydfil on that very same day.
Yeah.
I've actually done a video on it. It's called The Mystical Lights of Merthyr Tydfil. Some guy named Gari, forgive me, I don't know his surname right now, but he filmed it. His 2 kids were in the back car with him. They were picking up some food somewhere, and they actually videotaped it, and I had that video looked at. And you can see there's 3 of them stationary and 1 moving. And it was just about the time after, I believe, that Joe Biden's Air Force One plane was flying around that area. Very interesting. And it's not too far from Pentyrch either. I mean, as the crow flies, it's about 15, 20 miles.
Wow.
We are in a very interesting area over here, trust me.
Yeah, out of everything that you've said so far, I think Pentyrch is, I have to admit, is on the map to be like Glastonbury or on the energy line of something magnificent. Something's going along there, and they made every single attempt to stop you receiving any information and gain any information. It's quite telling, isn't it? It's they say one thing, just believe the opposite.
How many times have you come across a case where there's been a cover story that's been put out by the mainstream for a military exercise. They then change the cover story to another cover story to try and cover up the truth. I think Roswell springs to mind as the only other one where they kept changing the story from it being a weather balloon to much more advanced weather balloon with crash test dummies that we didn't have for 40 years. You know?
And I should point out that they have changed their story in accordance with what me and Caz have put out.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
Change it again. Oh,
well, they can try. But it became a bit of a standing joke between Gary and I as to what lie they were going to come up with next, because they can't lie to me. I know the truth.
Santa Claus
I was there. So, you know, the level of intelligence went up, let's put it that way, from the junior office clerk to someone, well, you heard the letter that I read out and their response and then my response afterwards. You could clearly see that they wish they had a section 26 they could hide behind, but they don't. And they try to use exemptions that don't apply, thinking that I wouldn't know the difference, when I absolutely do know the difference. You know, they cannot say they can neither confirm or deny. They either have to confirm they have the information or they deny they hold the information. Otherwise, no freedom of information would ever be answered. And that's in section 11A, if anybody's interested. So, you know, they tried so hard, but as I say, the level of intelligence went up. And I was dealing with the intelligence communities, but even then, they weren't good enough.
What's the next step for you?
The next step?
Yeah, what's the next step?
Okay, at present, I'm trying to get an unredacted copy of the Condign report, which was discovered by Dr. David Clarke via Freedom of Information, which is a secret study into UFOs conducted by the Ministry of Defense and completed in the year 2000. It states in that report on multiple occasions, UFOs are of no defense significance and are not a threat. And if that is true, they cannot and will not hide behind Section 26 defense in this case. And I will challenge each and every one of them.
Very good point there. Very good point. Yeah.
Because that's what they claim, Section 26 defense. Well, if UFOs are no defense significance, how can they hide behind Section 26?
Yeah, that's a fair point. I mean, you're basically you're putting a legal notice or a legal claim on something that you say doesn't exist.
I want to use their words. I like to use their rules and regulations, and I like to use their words. And that's why I want an unredacted, so that I can get it verbatim and challenge each and every one of their Section 26s.
Absolutely.
Because I know what happened, and many other witnesses know what happened that night.
Yeah, I really do wish the information will come forward within time, Caz. I just got to keep fighting, and you've done a hell of a job doing. I mean, especially with you two, Gary, as well. Really done a lot of research. A lot of people, I think, more research than a lot of people have done in the UFO community. Honestly, trying to find out what actually happened.
One of the best documented cases. I would like the Americans to show the evidence to Congress. I think Congress should see it. You know, they did film it. I would like them to see the whole event because it happened.
It's probably they ain't going to show it because it's real. They're playing their games in Congress. So
the problem is, for me, one, they weren't hostile. If they were, I wouldn't be here, especially the way that it made me feel. I certainly didn't see any hostility from them, and the way that they behaved and the fact that they tried to hide doesn't imply that they were hostile. What our military have been doing for the last, 80 years now, they've been deliberately bringing these craft down. They're not coming here from wherever, whether that's pushing, we are bringing them down. And we'd only have to bring the wrong ones down.
Yeah.
To create a problem for all of us. We haven't given our consent for this to happen. And I'm pretty sure that if there was a vote as to whether or not we wanted disclosure, I'm pretty sure that people would want disclosure today.
Oh, yeah. People are banging on about it.
It may not affect us in our daily lives.
I would say something. I was thinking about this before I came on. I mean, the excuses they've given in the past is that if suddenly we found out that we're not alone and these things are here, and we're not in control of our own skies, they would say, oh, the economy would crash and religions would fall to pieces. There would be anarchy in civilization. Well, I hate to break it to you, but that's kind of happening already without it. So what's the harm in doing it now?
Good point. Very good point, Gary. Yeah.
Well, even on the religious aspect, didn't the late Pope say that he would baptize any aliens? He would convert them into Christianity.
If God created everything, then he certainly created them. You know,
I could stop doing that, honestly, God.
But, you know, I've said before, I'll say it again quickly. We've been told about more Earth-like planets in the last few years than we have ever been told about. How Earth-like do they have to be to sustain life?
There's that favorite, is it the Keebler one?
Kepler,
that's it. I'm sorry, I pronounce things a bit wrong because of my twang. But yeah, and I mean that one looks like that. It has got life because that's very similar to us, isn't it? It's got oceans, land, clouds.
Something
8
like
times the size of Earth, and there are 3 super Earths going around a yellow star the same as our sun, one of which has an alien structure around the outside of it.
The Dyson sphere.
Allegedly lost contact with the Kepler satellite that only took 18 months to reach its destination, by the way. So it's either closer or Kepler was moving a lot faster than they say it was. And we've allegedly crashed it into an asteroid to take a free ride around. We're watching it clearly, and they've said we've lost contact with it, so they don't have to give us any answers.
That's right.
Yeah, that's it. Done it before. Yeah.
You know, the 6 UFOs that were shot down when Mr. Biden was in control of the United States, and also Mr. Trudeau over Canada, which gave the order to shoot them down. They said crashed into the ocean. They were not Chinese spy balloons. You know, these were outmaneuvering their jets and interfering with their electronics. So whatever they were not weather balloons.
Well, the Canadian government has been very forward about it. They've even put out pictures of what this object looked like.
I've seen it.
Yeah.
The thing is, nobody took to the streets like headless chickens panicking. And I've said before, there would probably been a bigger rush if there was a sale at the local supermarket.
on Black Friday.
Yes. Then,
more people get hurt doing that than anything else. I've seen those videos. They're crazy.
Well, it's just how they. I mean, we can go into the politics. I truly believe it's a money game, and the military contractors are all in it. So they'll say whatever they want to say to Congress to get these big deals, and that's all it is. It's just money. The truth, that's a different story. Can the truth be bought? Can the truth have a price? And if it does, then this is what they want.
I think the question needs to be raised why it is, and we must have an armed military in space. It's not for cybercrime. Cybercrime comes from Earth. And why just about every nation in the world now has an armed military space force. They have space-based weapons, directed energy weapons and lasers, real Star Wars lasers. If there's not going to be a galactic war, they're certainly doing a damn good job of preparing for one. And it tells us in the Bible yet again, which is, for me, a history book as opposed to a religion, there will be a war in the heavens that every free man will witness. Against who?
And didn't it say something about there will be a netcaster over the world?
In the Old Testament version, because there were 2 volumes of books that were removed from the Old Testament, that actually talks in a lot more detail about this war in the heavens. We get one line in the book of Revelation today because they plagiarized and butchered it so much that we only get part of the story. Yes, they come to war with governments, not with the people. We've all heard the term prison planet.
Yep.
We were supposed to be the gatekeepers, not the other way around. They flipped the script on us, and now they're in control.
Really.
That's a somber note to end it on.
Do you mind just go through those questions? You got some questions. So,
that's what I was about to do, my friend.
Yeah, fantastic. But honestly, thanks, Gary and Caz. Honestly, it's been the most insightful interview I've heard in a very long time about a UFO experience. It's been, I know people in chat is absolutely loving this as well. It's unbelievable sighting that really deserves more attention. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do
I can
you
answer that
understand
question.
this? Do you understand this good?
Yeah, ADSB is a form of radar return. FR24, I think it means flight radar 24. I was using planefinder.net. Excuse me, I got a bit of an hiccup. Yes, they did have their transponders on. The 2 spotter planes did. Everything else did not. They were circling for 3 days and nights. We have the radar returns. If the person calling himself this DJ goes onto the Pentyrch YouTube channel, I do have the radar returns there. An interesting fact here you might want to take on board, people. Planefinder.net had a history of 7 years. So if it was still running now, I could go back as far as, say, 8th of August. What would that be? 2018. And I wouldn't have to pay anything. I wouldn't have to ask for anything. It would just be readily available. The second I used the Planefinder radar returns 4-hour case, would you believe it? They shut it all down. It was reduced to a week. And even if you pay a subscription now, you get less. You get about a year.
Yeah.
So they just changed the way they did stuff. It's always on the time when we do stuff. So yeah. I mean, there was no military transponders going off. I've looked everywhere I can. The closest I can get back to it now is like July of 2016. I think that's ADSB exchange. But other than that, I haven't got anything else.
Okay.
But the spotter planes were transponding. Yeah, they did have their transponders on.
Okay, question for Caz. What impact has this experience had on your life? Are you still a Christian? Do you trust the government? Do you now believe in aliens?
Well, I
That's
didn't see
coming
any
from my
Spielberg's
point.
funny-looking aliens, to be honest with you. These craft, for me, were alive. They were living things. I didn't see any aliens. I don't know what was on board the pyramid. Something was in control. It was definitely intelligently controlled by something. Yes, I'm still a Christian. I believe in the scriptures that went before, not as a religion, but as a history. And when you look at all of the scriptures going back that were carved into stone, put into tablets from a millennia ago, and you can see the common thread through it all. And I don't believe that it was ever meant to be a religion, but a history for us, a wheel of history that we don't seem to be able to get off of.
Well,
How has this experience changed my life? In every way. In every way. Everything that I thought was the truth is a lie. And everything I was taught to believe is a lie is the truth. I feel like a 10-year-old in a new world. I know our governments lie to us. I know our mainstream media lie. It's one thing knowing it, it's another thing proving it and seeing it and showing it to everybody else what's going on.
It has been proved a few times. Not that often, but I mean, look at the classic case of the BBC reporting on towers that fell before they fell.
Yeah.
I think I think Caz, you had like what's called a great awakening. What Rotary Matrix is saying. I think a lot of people like myself have gone through that stage. You've gone from a CNN brain, very mainstream brain, and then so you had this experience, and then your whole aspect of life has changed completely.
It took me 18 months to come to terms with it.
Yeah. It's a shock to the system, isn't it? And you just don't know what you do with yourself. You're thinking, oh my god, like, do other people believe the same thing that I believe? And it turns out there's a lot of people who are going through the same thing that you've not necessarily the experience, but the consciousness shift that you've had. It's it's very powerful.
I didn't realize how deeply and profoundly I'd been affected by it, but it certainly changed me as a person.
Good night, One True Saxon. I'll just shout that out. We have another question from Shady. It's directed to you, Caz. It says, has Caz had any UFOs, alien, NIH, non-human intelligent experiences since?
Yes. I think we gave the example of the barbecue at my home for all the TV hosts and radio hosts and bloggers that had helped me get the information out, because I've been shadow banned for almost 10 years. And we had that big bright object above the trees, about 50 feet away from the back of my garden. And it just seemed to get bigger and bigger and bigger and then just blinked out. I have video of other craft of a similar type that seemed to glow around their extremities of every light in the rainbow. That's the one where the lens flare kind of gives the true shape of the object, because it was so bright. And this is at almost ground level. That thing came down off the top of the mountain in less than 10 seconds. And there are huge drop-offs on the mountain. You can't just come straight down. And then later the military were searching for it. But that seemed to open a door and disappear and close the door behind itself. That was, so yeah, there's been a few. I've got hundreds of videos of UFOs since, just in this area.
Could I ask you a question now? Just on your channel, because you have 2 videos on your YouTube channel. You have a video of what I would say is a UFO. Was that taken from the night? Because I noticed that was posted about 9 years ago.
I can't even recall which video it is.
Should I bring it up? I'll get the next question and I'll grab it and.
Okay.
Okay. The next question comes from Rotary. What time did you hear the bang, and were there any witnesses that seen it after that time?
I was in bed, so I couldn't have told you what time it was. Gary established the time of the explosion through the National Geographic seismograph, which was at 4:21. Yes, there were witnesses at 4:40 in North Wales that saw the pyramid that do want to go on the record. We do have a statement from them, but Gary and I have to travel up there to get him on the record, and his wife. They were coming back from the hospital, so yes. I hope that answers the question.
No worries.
Was the first bang from the air? The second one was the impact, wasn't it, from the ground?
Yes.
Yeah. So the first one ricocheted throughout the town. Then I can imagine.
There are hundreds of people that phoned the police complaining about the explosions. They made comments on Wales Online regarding the explosions, and on Swansea's The Wave, which is also a radio that covered the incident of a military exercise that night. So there were a lot of people also talking about the helicopters that nearly took the chimneys off the roof of their house. Yeah, one lady had the tops of her trees cut off by a helicopter because when she looked out of her bedroom window, she was eyeballing the pilot. That's how low they were hovering.
Wow. It was just a comment that they're saying, your story is, hey, let's put it back up. Oops, there we go. Just hearing your story is life-changing. I can't imagine experiencing that. I'd love to see these orb ships, etc. Yeah.
I certainly didn't expect to see it. And I don't think I'd change it, not now. Because, I'm not afraid. And I'm just not. I know there is more to this life than this meat suit that we wear.
Oh, indeed. Indeed. This is the video that I was talking about. Now, this is March the 10th. The time stamped on it is March the 10th, 2016.
Yeah.
Here, I'll just play this. There we go.
Yeah, that's below the clouds. So that eliminates satellites. It eliminates the International Space Station. It was the ISS. It should have been plummeting back to Earth at 64,000 miles an hour, but there we are. This is one of the common ones, and I do have quite a lot of videos of these round white orbs.
Caz, I've captured the same thing. So I've captured a ball of light exactly the same go through the clouds, and I've got a footage of the ISS, like the two comparisons together. And I tell you what, the first one that I saw was actually it was like this, but
Watch
going
how
through the
fast
clouds.
it goes. As it approaches
Yeah.
the city lights, it goes really fast and then it shoots straight up. Gone.
In fact,
Did you
in
see
my
that?
footage, in my footage of the ball of light going through the clouds, I actually say, "Oh my god, it's speeding up," and it literally sped up out of view. I mean, I can only see a very small portion of the sky, but I've captured exactly the same thing.
I've
Ball
got
of
them
light going through
cloaking
clouds.
as they've flown towards the city lights of Cardiff. They've cloaked. There's one video that I've got where I didn't have time to change the time and date on the camera to film it because I'd have missed it otherwise. And that's the one that came down off the mountain. The date on the camera, it was not accurate when I filmed that. And I have the receipt of when I bought the camera, so you can see it's not the right date. So
What on that footage?
no, that's the right date on that
Okay.
footage. But every time you switched it off,
Yeah.
and when you switched it back on again, you'd have to set the date and time again.
All right. We've got 2 more questions. So if you guys in the chat right now want to ask any more questions, type it and I'll catch it. But like I said, I did put the questions. We got another one from Rotary. How many witnessed it, and what were the times? Was it around for say an hour? Oh yeah. How long? I guess how long did these things stay around? I guess
Well,
that's
the barrels seem to be around for some time. There were multiple witnesses. We've got a witness in Bettis in Bridgend. Doesn't want to be identified. And it's not a case of how long his statement is. It's the fact that he saw it. And he made the comment on the morning of the 26th of February when he said he saw military jets and helicopters pursuing a cluster of lights. And I contacted the witness and I said, I know the lights weren't white. So what color were they? And he told me green.
I got you, Freedom. Don't worry. Your question is next, brother.
And he told me green.
I mean,
and then he said, Caz, it happened all so quickly. You know, literally look up, see them go over the top, and that's the end of it. But the importance is that he saw it.
How were these objects moving? Like, what direction were they moving? Were they coming down or were they going across?
They were
all over the place, sporadic.
The military had put a net all the way around us. And when it began, all of the helicopters started moving in. So it didn't matter in which direction these things went, which were quite slow moving. They were herded together and pursued west. 50 miles outside the edge, no time, all the way
So
out.
they were kind of like corralling them.
Yes.
Caz,
yes.
What about that witness from the club? The DJ one, remember?
Yeah, he said that he saw one of the green objects being pursued back down the valley from Tom Pentra back towards Llantrisant. That's just, you know, one witness that saw one of the barrels being pursued back, all pushed back towards one area, and then they were pursued.
So they were definitely going across the sky.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
The helicopters have their spotlights out in front of them, not down on the ground, but pointing out in front of them.
Now, I think all the questions are good, but this question that Freedom asked you is really, really a good question, and it's something I would have asked. That's why the first time we asked it, or she, sorry, I started. But want to know, Caz, would you do hypnosis to find out about the missing time? Have you done it, or would you do it?
I tried to do it once. I got somebody off the internet, I think it was. They came to my home, and then it turned out that he was some blue coat from Pontins. I need somebody, you know, I've never been hypnotized before. So you follow people's instructions precisely, which is what I did. And I was like, what the actual, you know. I was afraid to do it. You know, I have to stick with what I know, what I saw. You know, is it when you're underneath hypnosis, are you reaching for the artistic side of your brain or facts, you know? Are you in a dream state? Is it real? I don't know. Since then, I do actually have somebody on my books who is a qualified hypnotist. And I know that he's angling to try and get me in to do hypnotic regression.
Mm.
And I will do it. Absolutely, I will do it.
Would you record the sessions?
Yes, I will. I will. But I want somebody there with me to make sure that they don't go and put some trigger word in my head.
Yeah.
You know, like those phone calls that those doctors received who spent a lifetime healing people to suddenly just receive a call, walk out, get into a car and set themselves on fire.
And themselves, yeah. So, that was a big thing going on a few years ago with all the herbalistic.
Yeah. So under those circumstances, I'd want somebody with me that I trust, like Gary.
Yeah.
But yes, I would do it.
Okay, we have a question from Bob Lazar. Could it have been a balloon rocket? No, not at all. That was not his question. that's a running joke.
He's obsessed with rockets. I think he thinks a rocket is happening.
It's because we did a video. We covered a story, and the way the guy described it, it sounded like a balloon rocket. So it just always stuck this balloon rocket. So any UFO we talk about, Bob Lazar has to say, could it be a balloon rocket?
Okay, let me answer this very quickly. I've seen video of the Tic Tac UFO. What I saw that night was not the Tic Tac UFO. These were the size of a small car, like an SUV, completely silent. And, you know, the green one above my head was less than 10 feet away from me. It was not a Tic Tac UFO. The one above the hedge was only 20 feet away from me, and just as high, if you like. I saw these things up close and personal. They were not the Tic Tac, no.
Because you described them like smooth, like glass.
Yeah, barrel shaped. They were barrel shaped, and they were topped on the tops and on the bottom were just black caps, and all the insides were moving. I've seen the Tic Tac UFO, and the Tic Tac UFO is ours.
Yeah, I believe that too.
Lockheed Martin. That's where the Tic Tac comes from.
Okay, and it looks like this is our last question, unless anybody else has got any. This is coming from Rotary again. Did you move with fluid motion? Did they move with fluid motion or jerky like a drone?
No, they just drifted. They drifted very slowly, silently, moved in directions. There was no jittering. The only person that said that anything about jittering was Jacob Coleman, that saw the bright green object, the one that we didn't know the shape of until the witnesses came forward from Smilog that night, that saw it in the standoff with the helicopters, and it was jittering that way and jittering this way, kind of, you know, backwards and forwards like this. And then the back of it, he described like electrical sheets in the wind, which is nothing that
Thank you, Sophia.
All right.
No
Rotary's. I think Rotary's got. Is that a quick? I'll put it up. What about the gumball and go fast shape?
Gimbal, you mean?
The gimbal.
Yeah.
I don't know what the go fast is. I've seen video of the gimbal. No, these were barrel shaped. There was no other moving parts. They weren't turning in the air or anything like that. They were,
and they were silent.
Yes, completely silent. No downdraft, no static feeling, nothing like that until it scanned me. Wow. And then that felt like somebody reached inside of me and just took it all away. Wow. It was the most amazing. I'd do it again.
Was it peaceful?
Yeah, very. And loving. For whatever reason, we are connected on a soul level. It was a soul recognition, like we are part of them and they are part of us. I can't explain it any other way than that.
And I'll tell you what, that's such a beautiful place just to say, you know, because that's where we should end, don't you? Do you think?
Well, I actually think our military keep them away because they have the ability to open our minds and to give us back what's been stolen. and suppressed from us, including telepathy and astrally projecting and all of these other things that human beings are capable of.
Oh, indeed.
Had it taken.
I 100%, because the one thing that resonates what you said is about ancient texts, and ancient texts tell us we can do this. Yes. We have the power of healing ourselves, but the frequency that we're supposed to be in tune with is being manipulated. So we're not in tune with that frequency. And this is why, like we touched on with the medicine, that these certain doctors were being unalived, is because we're on a planet where everything is here to help us if we know what we're looking for. And they don't want us. They want to sell us some chemical thing where they can make money. And, we know that we go, like an example with my daughter is, I'm showing her that when she goes out and plays out there in the fields, she gets stung by nettles. So I show her, look down there, there's a dock leaf. Just rub it and it's done. It's over. You don't need no ointment from the chemist. It is
there are many pharmaceutical companies out there, one that's been running for 75 years, that has never cured a damn thing.
Some of them have even been in trouble for creating problems.
Yes.
I don't want to call their names, but their initials are J&J, and they got in trouble for their products were causing the sea.
Yes. Yes.
So, are they really here to help us?
We can talk about that after.
But anyways, thank you guys for joining us. Is there anything that is coming up in the future that our viewers should be looking out for? Like, are you going to be appearing on any other shows or anything? Both of you.
I haven't planned anything. I did actually tell Gary that I wasn't going to do any more interviews. But I made time for you guys this evening because I do like to support people.
Thank you so much.
One thing I will say to people, if you do see any of these craft, please do not get too close, not because they're hostile, but because the energy that these things put off are extremely harmful to human beings. It's not deliberate. It's just a side effect of their energy systems. To keep a respectful distance if possible. I couldn't. They came to me. I didn't choose this path. They chose me.
Oh, I love that.
And you've received a beautiful message as well.
It changed me spiritually. It changed me inside. I have this inner peace that I didn't have before.
In a positive way, isn't it?
Yeah,
the whole experience.
Very much so.
You sound like you have this inner peace because you sound very calm, very like tranquil.
Thank you.
And I'm picking up on that vibe. I'm sure Gareth, because he's closer to you, he probably when he comes around you. Sorry, I've been doing that all the time. When I'm talking to my missus, I'll call you Gareth. I even pull myself and I say, "Why am I calling this guy this name?"
Well, it's
sorry, Gary.
I certainly know there's more to this life than just this.
Absolutely.
I've seen the transformation in Caz over this whole time. So yeah, it is true. The spiritual, peaceful thing she talked about. It's true.
And that is probably one of the greatest gifts we could be given is just inner peace. While the world is losing their heads, we can keep ours.
Yeah, I try not to buy into the politics of what's going on. It's just there to enforce division. And the more we buy into it, the worse it gets. So
I see some messages of thanks from Rotary and Simone. So thank you. Yeah, thanks everyone.
At the end of the day, we're all human.
Yeah. But I'd like to thank Gary and Caz for coming on this show. It has been an absolute pleasure, and I would like to take a trip down to Pentyrch. It's not too far from where I live. Sort of see the scenery and everything. I'm sure it's a lovely scenery where you live. But yeah, no, honestly, thank you so much once again for coming on the Hidden Underbelly channel and giving you experience. Pleasure. It's amazing, and the people are mind blown by this experience and this whole incident in general. It's been amazing.
Please look at my page for the evidence if you wish to see it. As I said before, you're all my peers. You're all my judge and jury. Please look at the evidence.
And if you guys do check out the evidence, please, it's in the description box. The link to the presentation is in the description box. So on that note, Nick, you got anything coming up that you want to tell people about?
Not on top of my head. I can't think of anything. I'm too excited by this amazing interview we've been having. So yeah, but no, come check me out on Alien Addict. Probably tomorrow or next Friday. But I'll keep you all informed.
If you ever come to Pentyrch, Nick, send me a bell. And
I'll just say one thing before I go. I'll be putting out another UFO case soon. I mentioned it earlier. We've got the name for it now. It's called the Preston UFO Mystery. So we'll go with that. Or is it Pensan UFO Mystery? Yeah, it's Leanne Wood's case. Very interesting case, actually. I think it's worthy of mention.
Wasn't she in the chat?
She was in the chat. I don't know if she still is now, but do you want a quick thing about it, just so I can give people an update?
Yeah. When hour was it?
Yeah, it's I think it was like early August 2020. They were staying up in Colwyn Bay area in Preston, and one day they decided to go to the beach to watch the sunset. Her husband noticed something odd further out to sea. He got his binoculars, because that's what they take to watch the sunset, and he noticed a vertical, upright-looking object. It kind of looks a bit like a three-pronged fork, I guess, like a trident, I guess. And it was sort of turning slowly, standing upright. And they both saw it, and it was moving slowly out towards the sea. And it was black in color, but it had a very shiny sort of surface, I believe. And I worked out the size of it, because I've actually learned trigonometry in all this time. It was about 200 feet tall, maybe. Whoa. Out in the Colwyn Bay area, where a lot of sightings have happened, by the way. And I've looked into all the usual explanations. It wasn't any of that, so I'll have a documentary video thing made out soon, so keep an eye out for that, people.
Okay. So that's it, guys. Again, thank you guys for turning up, and thank you guys in the chat for being here. Again, just like to send my condolences to Renee Cruz. You will be missed, and it's weird not seeing you in the chat section, but I hope wherever you are, blessings upon you. And thank you guys. Thanks to the mods. Thanks to everyone. And I am going to say it. So until next time, stay blessed and keep safe, guys. So bye-bye.
Good night, all. Take care.
Bye, all.
Just you guys will stay on. Don't leave, because Gary left last time. See, I said Gary, not Gareth. All right, bye, everybody.
Take care. See ya.
Bye, everyone. Thanks.
For there is nothing hidden that will not be revealed, and nothing concealed that will not be known and illuminated. Stay blessed and keep safe. This is the hidden underbelly. blessed and keep safe.